What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Halftime with K Bizzy. Today we have a very, very special guest joining us, and I'm very, very excited. I've been dying to show you guys this. Oh, what's up, Rocky? I've been dying to show you guys this episode, and it's been hard to keep my mouth shut about it. There's been couple little teasers on my Halftime Twitter account that I've been posting out, but oh my god, incredible episode today. We have Fifflaren joining us. This man has lifted a major trophy at ESL Cologne 2014. He has been a part of the NiP 87-0 streak. Crazy stuff. I had about 10 questions lined up for today, but he had a lot of great stories, so we didn't really get to everything just because I was just so fascinated by everything he was telling me. I was so locked in. You know, it's not every day you talk to a guy like Fifflaren, so I kind of just sat back and let him talk about what he does and what he's accomplished in his career. So yeah, I'm just happy to finally get this out there and share with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode as much as we did today. So, yeah, mega shout out to Fifflaren. He was super down to do this right from the rip. We had to line up our schedules and stuff like that. He has a newborn baby, so congrats to him and the wife. But yeah, he nothing but respect to Fifflaren. One of the nicest people I've ever had the pleasure of talking to. Absolutely. No question about it. But we're going to get right into today's episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, we upload every single Friday of the year, and we upload at 12 p.m. Eastern. We're not only on YouTube, we're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So if you're out on the go at work or whatever, you can just play it right off your phone with your phone locked in your pocket. You don't have to burn a hole through your pocket with your phone on for a very lengthy podcast. But we're going to get right into it, man. Shout out Fifflaren. Shout out all of you guys watching. Much love, and we will catch you on the outro. How's things going with you?
It's all right, you know. I'm making the joke that I'm like barely an adult myself, and here I am taking care of a little baby, you know. It's
Yeah,
like crazy, but no, it's all right.
that went good. Like the newborn, that whole situation went good.
Yeah, no issues whatsoever. Had the 2 week kind of mark today, which is you kind of want to make sure that the baby's back in the weight and all that good stuff. But honestly, like really easy baby so far. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's been nice. I mean, I'm a nerd in general, so we still have a team. So like they play every weekend. So on Sunday I was even able to go into LA and watch them play. So
Oh, right
it's
on.
been yeah, you know, it's been all right. Definitely have the time to do stuff like this, for example, you know, and chat a little bit and all that good stuff. So how about yourself? Where are you based? You Canadian? No, right? You're
Yeah.
American.
Yeah, I'm Canadian. I'm right by Toronto.
Ah, okay, that's why. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. So do you? Because I've seen that you've been involved for a while. I'm guessing you're mostly Counter Strike.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm pretty much. This is pretty much the only
All
game I
Counter Strike.
play.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm guessing old school and stuff as well. You've been playing for a while.
I just got my 10-year vet coin 3 days ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. 3 year. What is it, 20? Okay, so you started after I retired, even. So like you're actually putting my age in perspective.
Not the intention. Not the intention.
That's awesome. That's
uh,
awesome. No, I made a joke. Even when I was playing, I was always saying, because I was always the oldest. You know, so even in my team, the NIP team, like I think 2 years over Forrest. That was actually maybe 1 year. But I always made a joke that I'm the grandpa, right? I've kind of still stuck by it. If I were to die silly, I would just be like, man, I'm too old for this shit. You know, so uh, no, that's awesome, man. Yeah, actually, if anything, you've been to much more Counter Strike events than I have the past few years. I was super bummed I missed Austin, for example. Like, I
oh
think
man.
that looked like an incredible event.
Oh, I've only been to Copenhagen and Austin. And Copenhagen, I only went for the grand final. Austin, I went for the entire playoffs. Oh my god.
Oh, you went
What?
to Copenhagen too, huh?
Yeah, I went to Copenhagen.
Oh, that's awesome. Did
First
you?
time in Europe and everything. It
Okay,
was crazy. It was awesome.
dude, that's awesome, man. You going to Cologne next year then? They announced the major and all that.
I'm loosely starting to plan it. I got some vacation days in the bank, so we got to use them some way or
Yeah.
another.
Right.
Yeah.
You work full time? You do? Yeah, I'm assuming you're not in gaming, but maybe you are.
Yeah. No, I'm working full time outside of all of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Oh,
that
this is
changes one
awesome,
day.
dude. Yeah, listen, everyone, even when I was like playing, like back in the day, like people never really had an understanding for like, oh, you can actually do other stuff outside of like playing. So I think there's absolutely like a ton of opportunities,
Oh, for sure.
especially the biggest thing like what you're doing, because I say the same thing to everyone of like networking is super important.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
fact that you're even like going to these events, right, like you're doing these interviews and stuff, like there's like basically like a mark that you're making, which is like really useful in
Absolutely.
general. So that's awesome, man. Listen, keep working at it. I've seen you've been really active and stuff. It's really fun. I think the one that you did with Launders, I wonder if I met him like a few days after or something. But he had mentioned, yeah,
Oh,
he
really?
had done something. Yeah, he had done something with you, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
Awesome.
At the time, I didn't know like that you were doing, because I think maybe you had the glasses in the back, because I was like, oh, maybe he's like an announce guy.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
said, no, it's just a fan that does some stuff. So I checked out the YouTube. I saw you were doing like the summits and stuff, and I was like, dude, this is awesome, man. Like we need more of that. We only have the old school people, right? Like the Duncans of the world and the Richard Lewis. Don't get me wrong, they're awesome at what they do, but I think we need more people coming in and like doing the stuff that you're doing. So
I
I think it's
appreciate
awesome,
that.
man.
That means a
Super
lot
cool.
coming
Yeah.
from you.
No, that's awesome. That's super cool, man. But listen, I'm all yours. I don't worry about the time on at least on my end. My wife is taking care of the baby. I told her, listen, I don't get to do these things too often anymore either. Like
Really?
the longer I go, I never liked the spotlight to begin with. Let's start with that. Like I think I was forced in a lot of positions to do certain things because of English was good. Like I had even at the time dating an American, but they just found threw it on me.
Hmm.
So I think people just had this maybe a misunderstanding of like, oh, most players like they like the camera time and they like the attention. I didn't like any of that.
Oh, okay.
I just love to play the game. So I think with that, when I went into talent and stuff, like I did get drained a little bit, and I have declined a lot of them just for the sake of the same reason. But I think the last few years, it's fun to reminisce about the past and like kind of get the brain working a little bit,
Yeah,
because
for
especially
sure.
in the field that I'm in, I talk to players. We're in League of Legends, but these aspiring pro players or current pro players, it's fun to kind of put yourself in their shoes in the sense of like, man, I used to actually do what they're doing for another game. Like there's relevancy there. And it's fun to kind of chat about, but I forget a lot of the stuff that, because you don't think about it. I'm in gaming right now, but I'm not in esports. Like I'm not traveling to all these events, right? Like I'm not a general manager, part of these teams. Get to be with like these teams and go all of these places every single time. So yeah, no, listen. So if anything, I think you're the first one that I've done probably for 2 years.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah. I think the last one I did was with Duncan, and that was maybe it was Duncan. Yeah, and it's 2 years ago. So listen, I'm stoked, man. Like I'm all yours. Any questions and stuff, I try and answer as much as I can, and go back. It's been 10 years now, so it's like, man, we did that.
Take a
So
trip
it's
down
crazy.
memory lane.
Yeah. No,
Right
so
on.
listen, whatever you want to do, dude. Like let's roll.
All right, perfect. You have any questions at all, or just
Nah,
want
man.
to just get right into it?
No, yeah, just get into it. Like I said, usually I don't. I think it's been very rarely where I'd be like, oh man, I shouldn't have sent that, or like, oh my god, I like messed up or whatever. I think after this NiP story that came out, like obviously it's been years ago now too. I don't know if you ever saw that when I came out with, I did a Richard Lewis thing with NiP. It was basically just talking about my
Maybe.
experiences there. Yeah. I feel like after that, something unlocked in me where I'm like, just fucking say it how it is.
Yeah,
So that's kind of how I do things nowadays. People are, no matter what you've done, and that's proven with me being a player. You can try and be as nice as possible. You're always gonna get the haters.
uh, uh,
You're always gonna get
yeah,
the people that just fucking shits on you, no matter what you do. So it's just like, listen, you can't please anyone or everyone, and with that, why would I try and like be someone that I'm not?
that's it.
So
Yep.
yeah, so listen, no questions on my end. Like I said, I think the last one I did with Duncan has lasted for 3 hours. I am a talker, so
That's fine, man.
definitely, yeah. You stop me if you need, and if I need to go into more specifics and stuff like that, obviously you let me know. So
All right, perfect. So I usually try to aim for about roughly 10 questions, and I did do that, but I also put out a tweet where I was, and I ask in Twitch chat and people in my Discord and stuff if they have questions for someone who's ever lifted a major trophy. So I got a
right,
couple little side questions. We could just rapid fire go through those.
sounds good. Yeah,
All
sounds
right.
great.
Perfect. So let's start with the most important question of them all. What is the lore on how you stumbled upon Counter-Strike once upon a time?
Uh, So the lore is actually maybe funny, maybe not. I think one of the things that I say a lot, especially for maybe Americans that's listening in, is I think Europe got internet and computers much faster than Americans did. When my parents were working, I don't know how old I was, maybe 8 or whatever. Uh, the government was actually subsidizing computers for everyone, where they're like, hey, if you want, we have this new thing coming. It's computers. It's super cool. If you want to have one for your family, like we will deduct, and it would basically be like tax free if you buy through your company. And it didn't have to be government jobs. My parents didn't have government jobs, but I think they were trying to push like high technology into most Swedish households then at that time. So we got computers very early. Um, and I think with that, and also modem and internet and all that good stuff. And I think with that, I think I was the age of 13, a lot of sports growing up. But then the computer started and the internet started, and I remember playing Delta Force at like a friend's place, and we would then show up every weekend. A bunch of old dudes, and I don't know how old I was, probably like 11, but I got to play, right? Um, it was a friend of mine whose dad was super into it. He actually had made basically a boot camp corner. He didn't just buy the one computer; he had
What?
five in his basement, like completely crazy, like unheard of at the time. And I remember going over there the first time. They were playing Italy. The game didn't appeal to me that much, to be honest. Like I looked at it, I'm like, I don't know about this. Like seems like not for me. I was Delta Force, and at the time I was super into Diablo 2.
Okay.
So it didn't interest me too much. But my friends, like every week, there was a new friend be like, "Yo, let's go over to my friend, like to this our friend's place. That is all these computers. We can go and we can play video games." And it was only really, I think, 6 months after that. I'm from a very small city in Sweden, so it's a lot of very community based. And since everyone now at that time got a bunch of computers, they actually ended up having like local LANs that was like
Damn.
hosted, and we were like 20, 25 people. But the first event then that they was hosted, as you can imagine, Counter Strike was everyone was playing it. I was still playing Diablo 2 and Delta Force, but I show up to this event and everyone is playing the one game, and I'm like, man, I feel left out. And they were making teams. We didn't do 5v5. At the time, it was a lot of like Prodigy and Aztecs. It was like 3v3.
Okay.
Um, but it sucks. Imagine being, 13 years old, and yeah, the nightmares that people have in general, like in sports, you get picked last. That's
Mm.
very much what happened. I never played the game, so it's oh man, who wants this trash bit? Oh, I'm gonna have to like play with this guy, and that kind of like hurt my feelings, right? In the sense of like, man, I just want to play with my friends, and they're saying that I'm too bad, right? And obviously it showed. Like I played that game then for the first time at that event. I was really bad. At that time, my friends had started like creating these small teams and stuff. In Sweden, there used to be ladders.
Okay.
Um, and I was really bummed after the boot camp, like the LAN lasted for I don't know 5 days. After that event, the guys went home, right, and they start talking a little bit. And I'm too shit to play, right? So they're like, "Oh, listen, Robin, like we already have fun. Like you're not sorry, dude. Like come back later." And this is where the competitiveness in me comes, because I think I grew up done basically any sports you can imagine up until the age of 15. But I was very competitive in that sense, where I'm like, man, you're telling me that I'm too bad to play with you guys. Like, I'll show you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I start playing. Um, 3 months go by, and there's another. We used to have it like every quarter, basically these local events like lands. We just bring it, and it only back then. You talk about being good or whatever. Like, obviously, people were bad to begin with, but I think I needed those 3 months. I came back, and all of a sudden, I was a lot better than I was 3 months ago.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I no longer got picked last. I was in the middle of the pack, but after that local LAN, I was probably one of the best players in my friend group now. Just after that short amount of time, and I think that's really what like got me going in the sense like, man, actually, this is really fun. Like, I can see there's a trajectory, something I didn't really get in sports. They had you run laps and stuff, and as a kid, you're like, what? I'm getting faster, like 1 second, cool,
Yeah.
right? But in Counter Strike, it was kind of this like, man, actually, like, I went from not being able to kill anyone into now I'm like topping the scoreboards with my friends, and it's like, oh, that's like really fun. Um, so no, so I think really that's how I got going in the sense of like I grew up with computers early then, played Delta Force and Diablo. I was competitive in. There used to be a Diablo ladder for player versus player for PvP.
Okay.
And it was basically duels. So I already had like the competitiveness even in the video game side. But the Counter-Strike side, yeah, very much, I started, finally felt like I got good enough. All my friends at that time, because I had a friend back then that cheated. We didn't know.
Oh,
We
damn.
were innocent. We went home to his place one time, and he would have like a little arrow above models. It didn't go
What?
through. It didn't go through walls or anything like that. It was just arrows. Like, so if you see T, it was a blue arrow above, and it was T, it was a red arrow above. So it's basically
Oh.
like a guide. And we came back and we're like, what's this? And he obviously was innocent and whatnot. Maybe said, "Oh, no, they just downloaded this." It's like I feel like that's cheating. But we had that, so my friends also, because I got good very fast, were like, "No, you're also cheating. We don't want to play with you still. You're also cheating." And I kept on wanting to like prove my friends wrong. I'm like, "But what are you talking about cheating? I am not doing anything. I am not using any of that, like or anything like that." So I think that into them basically saying I was good enough actually got me into my first team, and it was with a local friend. But back then, even this is 2003, Sweden already had online leagues.
Oh,
You had
damn.
different division stuff. It was crazy, right? If you go back and you think about it, because Counter Strike obviously came out 1999, and we had Swedish top teams basically from day one. And since Sweden was so ahead, or I would say Europe maybe, they started looking into all these like the facets right now that you see, or like ESL Pro League. Like we actually back then even had regional divisions. It went all the way to Division 8,
Wow.
which is awesome, and you have ample teams in there or whatever. So obviously, when I joined this team, I started in Division 8. And this is back in, I think, 2003 or something like that. Um, Finally get a chance, right? And then start to attend these local events and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it started off with the fact that my friends said that I was absolute garbage, into, well, you're cheating, into, well, I just want to play with you guys and have fun with my friends, and I can't believe you're like doing all this.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah.
my mindset was always like, yeah, let's prove them wrong. And it didn't take very long until I obviously surpassed all of them very quick. And then with that, if anything, they were actually not good enough for me anymore, which is why I ventured into then, the team that I found. There was probably, I was 13 at the time, I had teammates that was 22, 23, 24 from all over Sweden.
How the tables
Looking back,
turn.
yeah, and looking back, it's actually like nowadays you're like, man, like I can't believe my parents allowed me to like go up to Stockholm and meet a bunch of like 25-year-olds when I was, under the age of 15 even.
So crazy.
Yeah, but I appreciate all of that. The fact that they even allowed me to do it, right? Like, they had the trust in me of, yeah, okay, if that's what you want to do, you go and do it. I don't think I would probably like continued had I not had that kind of support.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
no,
huge.
listen. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's at least how it started for me, in the Counter Strike space, at least for how I effectively started. And I started in 1.5, but I think my story actually starts 2005 because I swapped over to Source.
Okay.
So I spent two and a half years, 3 years, local events, Counter Strike 1.4, 1.5, into 1.6. And it was cool to obviously travel around Sweden and compete in all these local events. But I think you were getting at a time, because I was seeing then the best teams in the world at the time being able to go to CPL, right, and be able to go to these events where it's like, oh, they're actually like traveling outside of Sweden. They're
Hmm.
competing against, the world. That was extremely like cool to me. That mindset of like, man, actually, like that could be me one day. So it's always in the back of my mind of like that could be me one day, with these guys. Like I just have to continue grinding hard, right, and working for it, and going to these events, making a name for myself, right, like
Yeah.
networking, all that good stuff. It was always in the back of my mind of like, yeah, I really want to get there. Even though the space was relatively new, it was always like, well, they're able to do it. Why would I not be able to do it,
That's the mindset. I mean,
right?
if you can apply that mindset to anything, come out a winner if you're passionate enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
This episode of Halftime with K Bizzy is brought to you in part by Pricempire.com.
Pricempire.com is absolutely loaded with essential tools for any skin enthusiast. Whether it be their blog, their price comparison app, the trending deals, or your personal inventory tracker, I mean, Price Empire really has it all. Pricempire.com is trusted by more than 1 million users on Trustpilot to ensure everybody that it is a fair and legit website. Pricempire.com is linked in the description. Go step your skins game up today.
And the thing that amazes me is just like I'll never forget the first time I went to Europe, and like Counter-Strike's big in NA, but it's nothing like EU Counter-Strike. Is just a different level. I went to the airport, and it was a tougher looking lady, and she was checking my passport. She's like, "What are you here for?" And I'm like seeing Counter-Strike, the Copenhagen major ads at the airport. I'm like, "What?" And she's asking me what I'm here for. I'm like, I'm here visiting a guy that I met like a bunch of years ago playing a video game, and there's like a big professional tournament. Counter-Strike? I'm like, what? I'm like, you know about this? She's, yeah, my kids are going. I'm like,
yeah.
Like the craziest thing ever. It's so amazing to me how big it is over there. It's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, listen, well, we'll probably get to that because that, really at the end of my career is when it really blew up in that sense. 'Cause we did a lot. Like I said, it was very niche in general. Like I think because Swedish people and European people in general, because they got computers very early. I think in America or in Canada, you guys got consoles early. We got computers early. So I like your console region in general. But I think with that, they did see it as like this, especially depending on where you're from. Like at the end of the day, the parents don't want their kids to go out and don't do what they're up to. Like, oh, are they up to no good out there? All of a sudden, you start getting these like computers and stuff. Be like, oh, my kid is just out not showering somewhere in like some basement playing video games. Dude, this is like the parents, best dream scenario where they're like, oh, they're not out like doing anything, like drinking or whatever. No, so it is crazy. It's really boomed. And I'd say this is a fun fact, and I'm sure we'll get there. But since I moved over to the States, I was never a B-lister, A-lister, whatever. Like maybe a C-lister in Sweden, but like it was to a point where if you go outside, people recognize you. Right?
It was that big.
It was big. Like even to this day, the get right to the, and I wasn't even get right and forest level, but you get to that point, like you are basically a celebrity. Like you are walking, and there will be people that recognize you. Counter-Strike, because Sweden was always so big in Counter-Strike. If you think about it, from 2000, that's 25 years ago. Those people that was playing back then, they are now parents. So like you said, the person that stopped you at the Danish airport, maybe she used to play, or maybe she had her own boyfriend or whatever, and now all of a sudden, like those dads now basically are teaching their kids, about Counter-Strike. So it is very, I would say it's close to like Korea in that sense, where like gaming is big.
Very big over
when
there.
I moved, and I moved, I moved to States 2015, basically right at the end of my career. You would argue that I'm the most famous that I've ever been in the same sense of namesake wise. I moved to the States. I've been here now for 10 years. I have been recognized on the street once.
Oh, wow.
Right. So to give you to your point, right, putting into perspective in the sense of like just how big it is. And obviously America is massive, but there is a stark contrast with like how Europe kind of treats gaming and esports versus like North America. North America is much more like Hollywood and content creators.
Yeah.
Less like esports. Europe is esports, like it is sports. You see the Vitality cheerleading squad, like every country would have like these tie-ins to like one org. Like Astralis standing in Copenhagen or like in Denmark, right?
Yeah.
Like they're massive. Every kid would know Astralis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, really fun, and especially to learn that I've had moving over here for 10 years now. It's like, yeah, it's very different. Like they treat them also very differently. Here it's for eyeballs, kind of like, oh, okay, we're generating views for something, revenue, whatever. But if we're generating views, then we might as well do that from like, it doesn't matter how the views get generated. It could be from a content creator or from the esports. In Europe, it's esports. It's not views.
It's like I idolize that guy.
Exactly. Okay. Right. Like, no, we're here to be, and the sponsors you get, they're here, like you're pitching that you are competing, versus the best teams in the world, right? Like that's really the selling point. And those sponsors coming in be like, we love competitiveness. In North America, it's a little bit less than that. Obviously, you'll have some outliers or whatever. But when we talk about the success of the regions and stuff, I do think it holds a lot in the sense of like how just mindset wise, just how different the regions are. But yeah, it's very different. You know, you go Vitality probably in France right now.
Oh,
Dude, those guys are, you know, like imagine Apex. You know,
oh,
I think probably close to an A-lister at this point. Like it is that big.
yeah.
You mentioned Copenhagen Airport, right? Like I think every year for probably 6 years, there's a Burger King there, and they always do Counter-Strike ads, or like at McDonald's, they do Counter-Strike
It's
ads.
so crazy.
Yeah, we had a burger at McDonald's. You know, I was on the largest Swedish bus company. We had our faces on there. You know,
Wow.
like it's very different. You know, um, but I think also like with that, I think that's where this stems from, like this European success in general, because you are actually treated like as an athlete in some sense. It's not just about like, you know, here it's a lot of like, well, if you're not competing, if you're not winning, you need to generate like stuff elsewhere. We need you to stream, right? And that's when, you know, these kind of like the shrouds of the world kind of come into play, right?
Yeah.
Where like he's a professional, but you can tell based on the viewership, like obviously when he has a decision to make there, what would he pick? Well, he's making a ton more money streaming. Viewership is there, like it's consistent, right? You don't have to like win or lose to like make a paycheck or whatever. I think the answer is pretty clear. Like probably most people would pick creator in that sense. In Europe, it doesn't even happen. You ask any of the players, they're like, I hate streaming. I hate doing that. I
They
just want to
just want to
play the
play.
game.
That's it.
Just want to play the game, right? So then with that, they have to adapt and they have to sell in a different way, where you don't have then like you have here like the profiles in every team, but oh, they're the face of the org, like they're doing all that stuff. Very spread out.
Yeah. It's crazy how just, you know, I don't know, it's just super interesting. I always love the talk about just EU versus NA and just how many
Yeah.
layers there are. Just super fascinating to me.
Yeah, listen, if you want, I'll get there as well after, because I think one of the things that I explain nowadays, having lived in both, and obviously, I mean, still in esports over here, and I was in Counter Strike briefly when I was at Dig, is I I see why, and it doesn't just revolve around Counter Strike. I would say American esports in general is very behind European esports when it comes to every single title almost. Or if anything, they start off very strong and they drop off.
Hmm.
You saw like in Counter Strike is a good example. You know that C9 period back in 2014, 2015, into obviously the Grand Slam, and then boom, it just kind of dies out, and now all of a sudden Valorant's there. So it's kind of like flavor of the month, kind of. And I see it on like a management level, or like in general how it gets treated here, because it's in America it's a lot more short-term thinking, like
Hmm.
instant success. How can I spend the money right away to start winning right away? And obviously if all those people have the same mentality, well, there's only one winner.
Yeah.
And Europe has never been the region where you talk about like Europe has so much money. Like if anything, Europe has the least amount of money in these regions. They have to be smarter, and they have to think more long term.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the massive like mental change for me in terms of Europe allows for you to actually sit down, take your time. Like we think about Counter Strike 7 maps, CT side, T side, all these smoke snakes, whatever. Like I think you're unfair to say this team has to be really good after a month. Like it's impossible, no matter
Yeah.
how good you are. Like you probably say, well, one map is 1 month. So with that 7 maps, I think this team is going to be the best in about 5 to 7 months time. In North America, you start, you know, maybe a good example right now is like this Liquid roster. You know, you instantly have the shot and you give them a month. You're like, this team is garbage, right? And imagine on the org level, they're obviously now feeling the pressure and
Hmm.
feeling like, oh, this was a massive failure. Swap, 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 change, 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 change. You know, I think Europe has been a lot more smarter in that sense of like seeing the pieces, thinking long term. Like, are we getting better every week? Is the answer yes? Then we have to be willing to stick by it. And we have to be willing to take that chance. And maybe we'll make a swap here and there, but it can't be from emotion.
Yeah.
It can't be from like, oh, like we need to instantly win right now, right? Like, and for the orgs that's done that, you see it because right after majors, then they've spent too much money, don't make the major, and they're broke.
Yeah.
But very rarely, maybe does that happen. You'll have like the tier 2 teams do that. But then you kind of see them for what happened with America, where it's like, well, instant gratification. Valorant comes out, and there's a franchise model just looming, right? Ooh, they're a franchise, nice. I don't have to qualify or anything. I just have to pay money, right? And then everyone just drops, and it's such a shame, right? Because now you
Hmm.
see that we see Counter Strike coming back in North America a little bit more now, but I think they haven't made the best decisions for the region itself. And I think that's also why we continuously see just like North America in every game, it goes like up and down, up and down, up and down. Versus
Yeah.
Europe, it's consistent, you know. It's a ton of learnings, and it's been really fun to kind of experience both of them. As a former professional player, and if anything, you know, a major champion and all that good stuff, it's much harder to do stuff over here because I think my value is, well, I want to compete. You know, I want to be the best, and I want to field the best players, and I want to do all that. I understand that you know it's not gonna happen overnight. If people tell me, Robin, Bill, you know, do this, and be like, I'm not about that. You know,
Yeah.
I'm all about like that growth and whatever. But I see the struggles. You know, but it's been a really fun little experience for me too, to get a chance to actually, you know, see how both kind of operate, and try and figure out, you know, where do you kind of fall under that.
Yeah, absolutely. This video is sponsored by skinvault.gg, a trading site that makes upgrading your inventory easy. When you get to Skinvault, log in and add your trade link, and it's as easy as that. Simply select the skins from your inventory and choose what you want to trade them for. And of course, if you're looking to sell your skins instantly, Skinvault features a convenient cash out section. When you're going to cash out, make sure you use the code Bizzy to get a free $10 bonus as well as a 35% deposit bonus on top. And if you're lucky, you might find golden tickets which give you free balance. So head over to skinvault.gg by clicking the link in the description and get yourself a free $10 and a 35% deposit bonus, all on me. And I'm really fascinated by the OGs of Counter-Strike, and you know, a guy like you probably have a million stories, and it's just so cool to me, like the things that you especially have experienced. So I wanted to know, can you kind of walk me through like your beginnings of playing professionally? Like I'm sure it happened when the divisions started happening back at your local lands in Sweden, but did you get to maybe Division 1 and then there was like a new opportunity waiting there for you, or how did you take it to that next step?
Yeah, no, so absolutely, right. So I think I start this, you know, obviously Division 8 and whatnot. I have in Sweden, I'm not sure if it's super common here, but in Sweden, when my parents got my, you know, me, they start a savings account, and the whole idea is that you have the savings account when you, by the time you hit, or you know, hit 18, it's your money or whatever. So my parents actually allowed me to start using those funds when I hit 16. So it allowed me to basically pay for myself to go to these local events. You know, as you can imagine back then, you know, the prize money in the local events was like a mouse pad,
Yeah,
right? It wasn't
yeah.
money, and it wasn't. You know, they had computers lined up. You had to bring your own computer. You had to bring your own monitor, right? You know, you had to like basically travel. If anything, you feel well off, you can get a hotel. But in a lot of ways, like these local events, you would bring your computer and the CRT monitor, right? Like freaking 70-pound beast or whatever, like getting on a bus, trying to get on. You don't have you have the money for the entry fee, and you have the money for the bus. At that time, 14, you don't have the money for hotels. So you're sleeping at the venues, right? It's very common back then. Like these local
Wow.
events, everyone's sleeping at the venues. In most cases back then, it used to be in like you know, like a sports hall or like connected to a school. Like you would have like the
Okay.
gymnasium. They would always like put up the computers in there, and with that, they would, you know, maybe the bathrooms would be the sleeping pods.
What?
Um, yeah, it was, you know, that was
Damn.
super normal back then, right? And this happened, and effectively, uh, I hit my peak in, I guess, 1.6. I think I stand in for a team. They're Division 1. Um, they are maybe top 6 out of 10 teams, so like middle of the pack, like not really good, not really bad. I get to stand in for them for a little bit, because I think one of their players had an injury or whatever. So I played for a few games, and we ended up qualifying for one of the events that was paid for the first time. The guy comes back, and I don't get to go. But
Oh,
I
no
think,
way.
yeah, but I think at that time, this is now around 2000. It's the start of 2005. I was really bummed by that, and for some miracle, whatever reason, uh, one of my neighbors, he actually was a professional in Soldier of Fortune 2. It's an old FPS game. Go check it out. You know, I've never played it, but that game was also like pretty semi big. So he had actually he ran an organization. It's called Northern Darkness. And back in the beginning of 2005, I think middle of 2004, Counter Strike Source comes out in beta. I didn't play it, none of that. But my friend knew that I was playing Counter Strike, and his org at that time were like, "Well, Soldier of Fortune 2 is dying. We want to swap over to a new game. This new Counter Strike Source game seems really interesting. So he actually brings two of his buddies, basically they're three, and they want to swap over to Source. And he comes knocking on my door and be like, "Hey, I heard you play Counter Strike. We want to go over to Source. We have an org. We have support, travel support. We want to start doing stuff." And I'm like, "Dude, this sounds. It's Counter Strike. I've never played Source before, but it's how different could it be?" So I say, "Listen, that sounds awesome. I'll say yes." So I convert to Source in 2005. I joined this org, Northern Darkness, with another buddy of mine. It was only there for a few months. But what came out of that was this org was able to send me to England
Oh
for
wow.
for a Starbites event. And again, I mentioned sleeping on the floor. It's not like a lot of things changed, but now all of a sudden this org could afford a plane ticket. Something that I could never afford. Right, I was going
That's
buses all
expensive.
over. Logos expensive, and they would be able to pay like a UK entrance fee and all that. So they fly us to England. We still sleep at the venue, right? But at least we're getting there. And I remember they sent us to Copenhagen as well for an event. It was really cool. I finally got a chance to compete internationally, in 2005. And I think I was there for 8 months or not. Things are going very quickly at this time because the game 1.6 is really big at the time. I think there's a lot of eyeballs in general. Source is the new game where like the graphics are a little bit better. So like sponsors like Intel and stuff actually want to support Source because it's hard if you're Intel, trying to sell this brand new processor for a game that you can run. Like it was very difficult for them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interest from sponsors, and with that, it was a lot of interest. Like we had a lot of events, and I actively then that the 2 years there, like I was attending everything that I possibly could. I think where I made myself known globally was start of 2006. I had left Northern Darkness. We had made an organization ourselves called Adastra.
Okay.
It means to the stars. It's funny, Astralis at the moment, if you think about Latin or whatever, Astralis is similar. I think it's also something like to the stars, but we were at Dastra. And we ended up going to this Copenhagen event. Again, we get to sleep in a stable this time. It smells like horse shit the whole weekend.
Oh fuck.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But we go to that event. We don't have microphones. It's super noisy. Like we're just yelling. But we end up winning that event. And that was really cool because that was the best players for basically all of Source that came to that event. And I don't
Wow.
think anyone was really expecting us to do well and whatnot. We end up doing extremely well, make it to the final versus a German team. We end up beating them. I remember there were disputes at that time because at that time there was a lot of, with like config messing, and you could mess it with configs a lot.
Okay.
And we weren't unknown, but we weren't like known in the sense like, oh, these guys are actively going around winning tournaments. So I remember actually halfway through the final, the German team had actually filed a dispute for one of our players to having the admin basically go and check his computer.
They were
Uh,
accusating?
yeah, they were accusating, and they
Damn.
thought it's a config issue and whatever, right? And that guy is particularly is like the worst person to like say that to. He played all default, completely all default. He's like, yeah, you go ahead. At least for me, I was tampering like config maybe a little bit, like some settings, some whatnot, like trying to make the game maybe more fluid. But this guy obviously like absolutely nothing. But it was fun because not only then did we go and win, but we did it in a fashion where the best teams in the world thought that we were cheating. So I think that actually like increased our value even more so in terms of like being known. I remember right after that event, an American org reached out.
Oh.
Actually, two of them first. Yeah, the first one was Xizt, Zebra Extreme. It's a really old 1.6 org. They didn't even give us jerseys. I bought white jerseys. We have painted on that shit. They sent it to an event in Finland. I remember, and we were only there for I think 4 months. We realized, oh, actually, these guys are scamming us. Like they were saying that we're gonna pay a bunch of stuff, they never did.
Oh.
We left and joined another American org, Xizt. And that was a little bit more. I think they come from like maybe Halo or Call of Duty and whatever, but they were much more known. But that's really, I would say, like after 2005, money started coming into the game, and we started getting more and more known. So these sponsors then and these orgs started showing interest. Which was awesome. Right after Xizt, it was NOA, which is back then massive German org. They were sponsored by Kappa, the clothing brand.
Oh
Like they had
wow.
a ton of sponsors. And it was really cool because we basically, what that means that we have made it into the upper echelon of things, so where we're getting these kind of sponsors. But it was really, you know, like back then, 1.6 was still king. Source was little baby brother that everyone flamed, right? Our sources, kind of like how CS and Valorant is at the moment.
Yeah.
Whereas, oh, only the shit players went to Valorant. Look at them, they're pros now, and all that. It was honestly identical. There's always these conversations. So while we did have events, we weren't as taken care of as the 1.6ers. They got to go to, you know, I think they even went to they got to go to America. They went to like there used to be Saudi Arabian tournaments even back then.
Oh,
Where they'd be
wow.
put into like 5-star hotels. Just these like billionaire people that's just running events.
Wow.
Meanwhile, we got the events in schoolyards and sleep
In
in
fucking
stables.
barns.
Right. But listen, I think that's something, you know.
It's
I
part
mean,
of the
you know, if we
experience.
did, yeah, part of the experience for sure, right? And I think really what changed a lot of it is 2007, where the first ever, you know, now esports. I think even at the time, StarCraft was really big in Korea, and I think America was looking into like, well, what's the next big thing? You know, like, and DirecTV back in 2007 actually came out and said, we're gonna make a gaming league that's gonna be global. We're gonna have, I think, 10 domestic teams in the US. We're gonna have 2 from Europe. They were called Stockholm Magnetic Berlin Alliance. We had Asian teams. We had an Australian team. It wasn't just Counter Strike. It was Counter Strike Dead or Alive. It was a fighting game. There was a car game. We had FIFA in there. But they
Oh,
basically
wow.
tried to make this like something like really grand and big, right? And it was really the first. And here's where the shock came and the surprise for many. They ended up picking Counter Strike Source instead of Counter Strike 1.6.
Ouch.
Yeah, for that fan base, you know, Counter Strike you know, 1.6 by far the more popular game. But as I mentioned, with sponsors, like Source looked better, you know, like for if you're gonna because it was on TV, national television, it was on direct TV. So there was, I think, a natural decision for them to say we're gonna go Source instead. And this is where, you know, technically the gamble I made then back in 2005 really paid off because I swapped and I converted very early. When that news hit back in 2007, every single North American 1.6 player swapped over
Oh, so you were
because I
way
had
ahead of the game then.
way ahead of the game, right? So all these guys basically, you know, start and sure, now I'm still European, but basically that's how 1.6 in North America dies. Because every single pro player, every brand, Complexity, even at that, they have a CGS brand. Team 3D, obviously very old school, they convert into Source. And a lot of money, as you can imagine, because it's a TV. Now, all of a sudden, I went from having support in terms of, well, yeah, I'll send you to an event. Here's the plane ticket. You're sleeping in a fucking barn though. Into CGS was like, you're getting salaries. You know, I remember back then, 2007, we were getting $2,500 per person. You know, as
Jeez.
salary, just crazy. Everything paid for, right?
So
Because
this was
it's
like your
TV.
job at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure, right? And I
Wow.
remember, so the way that they did the things was that it got announced at the end of 2006, and the whole thing was grand, right? So they would be running combines like you would in any other sport. So they had a combine for Europe in Birmingham in England, where, you know, our team got to fly over there and we got to play the combine, and then there was a draft. It wasn't about like winning the tournament. You had 2 general managers, one from Berlin Alliance, the one team then, and then one from Stockholm Magnetic. They're the GMs, and they get to draft who they feel is the best.
Wow.
So I remember that draft because basically right before that, like, get me wrong, like I was traveling a lot, I was making some money. My parents at the time, because now I've spent, you know, 3 years of effectively like my teen adulthood life, honestly spending a lot of time on Counter Strike. You know, my parents are like, "Man, you're gonna get a job? Like, what's going on?" They're like, "Where's the focus?" Right? And I kept on telling them, "Listen, we're almost there. You know, I feel like we're almost there where I can like make a little bit of money, where I don't have to ask you for things." Uh, I had asked them because my dad had asked, I think at the beginning of 2007, can we put a time frame on things? You know,
Oh.
like when, because you know, it makes sense, right? I was still living at home. I wasn't like a super leech. Like if anything, you know, you're playing video games, you're barely eating. You know, you're
Yeah.
so into the game, right? But I think he was basically seeing that and be like, man, like you're barely showering, you're in your basement playing video games all the time. Like it's this really what you're going to be doing? Maybe it's time to get like a job, right? And then that's in the beginning of 2007. In March, I think 2007, they announced then the combine for CGS that will have source in Birmingham in August the same year. And that was the compromise that I told my parents. Of like, I'll start to look for other things if I don't get in, because we knew it was going to be salaries and all that good stuff. We go to the combine. We finished third. They did have a tournament. We finished third. But they actually have show matches in between too, because they really want to. Because the tournament, it could mean that you don't play certain teams that's there,
Okay.
right? Because it's bracket. So they're like, okay, well, we're gonna have show matches after as well. So outside of tournament, we can pin you against other teams. So one of the fun little stories that came out of that was, while we finished third, you could make the argument, well, why didn't 1 and 2 get picked? The first team that won got picked. The second team didn't. And there was a lot of like noise before we obviously ended up getting picked. There's a video I think on the internet that is basically from the combine when he says our names for the first time. We all freak out because we made it in some sense. That second place team, the fans gets really mad. They're like, "What's going on? Like, why didn't you get? That's bias." The two GMs were Norwegian and Swedish, so it's like a little bit, yeah. So they're like, "Oh my God, it's biased." But after the fact, the reality was the reason why we ended up getting picked was in these show matches we were the only team that was able to beat the number one team in the show matches. The second place team never did, and if anything, it was never even close. So the GM basically said, "Listen, like I need to have a team that has the ability to win," which is why we got picked. And it was obviously a dream come true, So we ended up coming into CGS. We don't have the local domestic league like the American CGS does. We only go for the World Finals, so we're in the US for 3 months out of the year.
Wow.
And we basically play against then the top teams in all regions. 2007 we finished third globally in all of it. Same in 2008 we finished third. For the 2008 one, they don't do team one anymore. They drafted individual players.
Okay.
And I think that's where like people forget like my history in some sense, because people just remember me from my end of my NiP career. They don't necessarily, and I was only there for 3 years. My career was 10 years. So they don't see the first 7 years basically of my career. They don't know basically what like who I am, what I do. Am I just like the support player or whatever? Back then I was a star player. I was the in-game leader. 2008, that draft, I was first pick in the draft.
Wow.
For clear reasons. Both teams effectively wanted to have me. I had a lot of value, I think, at that time because there's not many like really good in-game leaders. So it's really cool in terms of like the status, or in terms of the work that you put in, kind of feeling like it's paying off. Like people are noticing that actually like this guy's good at the game. Like, oh, there's like a ton of value and whatnot. It's also the reason why when people ask me what's your biggest highlight in all of esports or whatever, people instantly assume Robin's gonna say ESL Cologne 2014, a major win. I never usually actually do, because I always reference CGS. Because had it not been from CGS, I would have never won the major to begin with.
That was
I
your
would have
stepping
never even
stone.
been here. It was my stepping stone, right? I would have never done what I did if it wasn't for CGS. So while they had a lot of bads and whatnot, it was really, I would say, like what made me continue, right? And got the faith from my parents and all of that, and got a chance to basically continue and do it as a job. So I referenced the CGS period a lot. And you mentioned crazy stories, man. Like CGS was crazy, as you can imagine, because there wasn't money in gaming to begin with. Now all of a sudden, this TV, like direct TV, is coming in, and they had us in Marina del Rey. So for people that's in LA, like it's a very fancy neighborhood. They had us in these like 5-star apartments. They were giving us per diem every week. They were giving us salary. They were burning so much money. It was crazy. Wow. And as you can imagine, a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds with like now all of a sudden like a lot of money. Like it was the Wild West,
Especially in Los Angeles. I mean, that you spend money pretty easy there.
Oh yeah. And I think a lot of that, like my frustration with 2008 was that I had teammates, because it was an individual draft. We had these guys that was supposed to be the best players in the world, dude, well, same thing. They get all this money. What do you think happens when they're in LA? Party animals, dude. Like, absolutely crazy. You know, we had proper schedules back then. I just remember that whole season 2. My teammates would just come back home drunk 5, 6 a.m. We would start games at 9 a.m., right?
Oh
Scrims.
my
And they would
god.
just be either super hungover or still fucking wasted. Uh, and there was a lot of those issues because now, as all of a sudden, you talk about like, well, money gives you certain things. Like I think in gaming in general, like I've always appreciated the mentality of like you have to earn it. You know,
Yeah.
if you're just getting this massive paycheck, no offense to Falcons at the moment, but I think you're taking away from like that competitive drive. Like you
The
don't need it anymore.
appreciation of what
Yeah, the
you're here to
appreciation, right?
do. Yeah.
Right. It's the same example I would give to Shroud, right? Like you have a guy that's really talented, but he's making so much money elsewhere where it's like he doesn't need this,
Hmm.
And then there is a mindset. You're gonna have people that is competitive and be like, well, I love doing this, or you're gonna have the people that's like, well, actually, I just want to make sure that I can live, and I want to do this as a passion and or full-time job. I don't want to get a real job. They will obviously go where the most money is,
Yeah.
right? So I think it didn't really help. Like for the people that was involved in CGS, obviously the dream, right? You'll have every single person that has been involved in CGS will always reference it, and they will always speak very good about it because of obviously opportunities we got. For everyone on the outside, they see it as like the devil child, right? That like they killed a lot of things.
Hmm.
Because when CGS then bankrupted, CGS died at the end of 2008. They burnt so much money where they're like, holy smokes, we can't continue. We're going to shut everything down. So it only lasted for 2 years. And
Damn.
as you can imagine now, this massive league dies 2009 and 2010 for both games, Counter-Strike 1.6 and Source. It's not good. Now all these players are like, oh, screw this, man. Like, we're done, right?
Gotta
Like,
find
people
something
don't want
else
to
to do.
continue. Got to find something else to do. You had a lot of retirements back then.
Wow.
Yeah, because of then the space, they kind of just saw, as always, it goes in waves, right? Of like, oh, esports is dead or whatever. It was very much like that back then. But it did get a reset, right? And then you got basically the passionate people back at it again. And, you still had events running and stuff, maybe the prize money was less. But obviously, slowly but surely kind of came back again.
Yeah.
And it's not like, 1.6 was still alive, I think, for 2 more years. But it is really in 2012 there where less 1.6 events, which is why my teammates effectively convert over to CS:GO, because they basically did what I did back in 2005, where they see like, well, the game that we're currently playing is dying. We're not going anywhere. Like this is a new nice game, like fast game that has the Valve support of a game that they're actually updating. With that, sponsors are going to come back in and they're going to start to run events, right? So they kind of were very smart with that early. But yeah, I mean, it's gone in waves a lot, and I think North American Counter-Strike especially has hit these waves so many times because while CGS died then in 2008, it was the largest it was in North America. In Europe, they only had 2 teams. So it wasn't like there wasn't anything else going on. It was still actively, they were still active. Maybe a good example of that right now would be Valorant VCT in North America. If that didn't exist, there's no events in North America. Like basically, what are people playing for?
Yeah.
Basically, what happened for North American Counter Strike back then, where it was CGS or nothing in North America. So the scene died, right? And then they had their small resurgence. You saw 2012, where basically the North American teams started coming back and really started becoming good again. 2014, 2015, where you have the Intel Grand Slam wins, and you have these American teams that's actively making like top fours, like there's profiles, and then boom again with Valorant coming out. But then I feel like you see it right now with North American Counter Strike. It feels like it's coming back a little bit again.
I mean, the Austin Major, it was proof.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
like incredible. That thing sold out pretty quick. The energy in the arena and everybody was so stoked. It felt like I was in
yeah,
Copenhagen again. Like with
yeah.
how excited people were. I think that's going to be a big eye opener for future NACS events, especially
I
Major.
think so too. Yeah, I think so too. And I think even for like the orgs and all of that, where they actively are seeing the fan base, like they're craving it. They want it. And I think one of the things that Counter Strike will have over any title in the world is, well, people could maybe be upset about Valve. Oh, need to be more involved. You have to do this. As someone that has now worked in almost every single esports title, We don't want that. We want Valve to do exactly what they're doing. Stay the fuck away.
Yeah.
And keep it as free and open. The change they did this year, where no more franchise league, like that's what they should be. Like keep all these people under constraint in the sense of like, let's not mess it around too much, but you have the freedom to do almost whatever you want. And with that, when I talk to people, I always reference Counter-Strike in. If people ask me, I say, in the gaming world, Counter-Strike is the UFC, where it's, you have these niche brands, you have the betting brands, crypto and whatever, like you have all of that is not really allowed in any other title, right?
Yeah.
But with it as well, you are also not like, you don't get fined for cursing, right? You can actually be yourself, like you can do, which is why I think the Austin Counter-Strike event that happened, I do think it's a wake-up call for like North American orgs, because I think it's the most pure form of passion that you can get in any game, because they're not trying to be someone they're not. We have these profiles, they curse, they
Yeah.
they do certain things that maybe doesn't seem like it's correct or whatever, but at the end of the day we share the same passion, which is Counter-Strike, and that's what we're here for. So yeah, no, listen, I think story wise, there's been so many crazy ones, from Barnes to Sables into missing flights, into breaking my CRT on a trip. We're basically halfway through, and at that time you don't have any money, right? So you're basically playing the event with like half a screen. Um, into the CGS, the dream, then being able to fly in like 5-star apartments. I got to meet the CGS because it's TV. I got to meet Linkin Park. I got to meet.
What?
There's a lot. There was, I think it was someone that came out. I think it was Sponge recently came out, and he had mentioned some more names that honestly I completely even forgot about.
Wow.
I think, yeah, I can't even remember. I think he said that Kim Kardashian was there. Like I don't. There's crazy, right? Like
What?
I think, yeah, it's like so many like wild stores into then these like CGS notorious after parties that is just still to this day the craziest that I've ever seen. Even like when we were winning everywhere, like going, nothing beats that.
Wow.
Yeah, into the tumultuous time, into like 2012, then where I would say it really starts to go mainstream, where we start to we get a NiP burger, right? We get to be on buses. Like it's a very different kind of feeling now, where we're not these like basement nerds. Like we are actually like people like see that there's extreme skill. We're getting known globally. We get to meet all these fancy people, in the sense of like, I think at one time I met the Prime Minister of Sweden. Like I don't
Oh
even remember
wow.
a lot of the. Yeah, I don't even remember some of these things, because it was like, oh, this is cool, right? I
Just
want to play
moving
video
so
games.
fast.
Yeah, it moved really fast. We got our own TV show, 10 episodes. This is before the DreamHack Winter, the major that we were supposed to win. We lost in the final. Uh, we had a TV crew following us for 3 months prior to that. Basically, like, dude, I could barely even go and shit by myself without
Wow.
having a camera. So it was very different, from what we were used to. I got to sit at home. I got to go to these events. All of a sudden, I had deliverables. I had to make a Twitter, make posts. I had to go, and we
Wow.
were myself, Forrest, and Friberg. We were the brand ambassador for Steel Series 2 years in a row. So I had to go down and do like, we did a themed, I think, marketing play for one of the releases that they had. Like all these things that was like really new in that sense. Like it's not like Counter-Strike back then got media training or anything like that, as you can imagine. They're like, oh, like, here you go, you're a gamer, whatever, right? And it was like, it was a very different. I would say this is around the time streaming also started becoming like not popular, but like owned 3D, and I think Justin TV at just around that same time, 2012, kind of started being a little bit more active. So yeah, it was very different, and I guess like a surreal experience in some sense. Like we've all gone from, this is just a passion, right? We'd like to play video games, into now feeling like we're some like form of like profiles.
Yeah.
It's why whenever people like, I've had so many people come up to me, or like anyone, right, and they get like starstruck in some sense. And I'm like, dude, I'm honestly just a guy, man, that loved Counter-Strike, and I just so happen to be decent at it, Outside of that, I'm just a normal dude, There's nothing special about me, right? Like, I don't poop gold. I play video games, right? So I always try to say the same thing of like, it is funny in that sense of like, it made me realize in some sense like how often we like put people on pedestals. Where it's like, actually, yeah, they were just passionate what they were doing. And at the end of the day, they are just like a regular person.
Yeah.
I learned
You
that
know,
when I met Ido Miguel at the Copenhagen Major,
right?
and
Yeah,
we were talking for months. He sent me a care package. It's a mouse pad signed by the whole CS dev team, some pants, and
awesome.
like a piece of paper, like saying thanks for being a fan or whatever. And we were talking, and the only reason I ever ended up talking to him is because of Gaben, which is crazy.
Right.
And he said, "Are you coming to the major?" And we're emailing back and forth for months. And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, let me know when you're here. Maybe we'll get you up to the VIP suite." And I'm like, "What the hell?" And I'm thinking to myself,
Crazy.
like, this guy he's the lead dev at CS2. He's like
Yeah.
probably super duper serious. And you just start forming an idea about someone, and I meet him, and he's just like another guy, just like
She's a dude.
just like talking to you. He's like, "Oh, so you ever open
Yeah.
cases?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I have."
Yeah.
Crazy though. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
So we got the chance the first time, and we're jumping to CS:GO now. But people at the time, there's so many conversations about us, right? As a team, they thought that we were, in Valve's pocket in some sense, like we knew everything, or everything was going on. Like we were literally like Valve's poster child.
Yeah.
That was never true. Like if anything, Valve ignored us for a lot of
Really?
our initial, yeah, for the first like 6 to 8 months or whatever. Again, we had big names, right? Because coming from 1.6, and at the time we were winning some events, like we were clearly the best team off the bat. And our goal, which was always, I even think my first ever HLTV interview, because HLTV was 1.6. It was very
Okay.
intimidating to go as a source player into an HLTV interview because, as you can imagine, like all the comments were basically like source of shit, like F off,
Be like a
right? Like,
Valorant
why
pro coming to,
Right, exactly, right. And if anything, they were obviously very upset the fact that like this team had source players they should have all been 1.6. Um, no, so it was like very intimidating in that sense to kind of go on. I forgot the train of thought. My God, what were we talking about?
like just meeting people.
Oh, oh yeah. That's right. Yeah. So like Valve, then we were trying to actively communicate because I think it was Get Right and maybe Forest. They played the CS:GO beta. Valve actually flew people out in 2004, I think, to Seattle. A bunch of 1.6 profiles and like Counter-Strike profiles in general. Get Right was one of them. So there was some form of communication going. So we were at that time, we just wanted, because we knew that if this game doesn't succeed, 1.6 is dead, Source is dead, right? CS:GO in the beginning was not a very good game. Like people forget, if you go back and watch, it's not a good game. Like people complain about CS2, but CS:GO was rough. And we came in and we kind of said, listen, like we know that it's this or nothing. Like we have to be as helpful as possible. We want to help them as much as we can. So we were actively like trying to give them feedback, trying to do some stuff. Very few replies. It was actually like we took it upon ourselves because we were gonna do a US tour because we had two events. I think we had ESCA finals in Texas, and I think at that time maybe it was an Iron Forge event or something. We were in the US for something else. So we just sent them a message saying, "Hey, we're gonna be in the States. We're gonna fly out 1 week early. We're gonna fly to Seattle, and we're gonna knock on your door, and we hope that you let us in."
Oh wow.
We never got an invite, no, nothing like that. We send that. We didn't get a reply for 2-3 days, and they say, "Sounds good. Like, let us know when you're here." So like you said, you mentioned Ido, right? And that was the guy that we got a chance to meet as well. And like that old crew is like really, it's a real experience in some sense because you never really know, right? Like there's so many conversations about, oh, there's one dev working on this. There's
Yeah,
no
yeah.
one. Everyone cares about Dota. It was like fun to go in and actually see. And it was a small team, right? But it was a passionate team.
Yeah.
Really passionate team. Like some of them are actively still there, right?
Mhm.
This is now 13 years later. It shows the passion that these guys have. But we got a chance to come in. I remember going in there then. We got to see the first ever version of Overpass.
Oh wow.
Very different from what we saw. And the first time they came live with it was Major, I think, 2014, the one we won. We had been there in start of 2013, so that's almost like a year and a half that we had seen. And the only thing that was honestly the same about the map was the monster entrance. That was exactly the same. We also then got to see, you mentioned skins if you ever open cases. That was obviously the launch of that, and we got to get generators on site and just click open.
Oh
And
wow, no way.
yeah, yeah. And the one change I think that we affected was at that time they asked us, because they were also, I think, launching the M4 silencer at the time. They had asked us what our preference is about the ammo size and the bullet size.
Okay.
Because there was like a give or take or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
is it 20? Is it 30? How much do you have extra? Is it 40? Is it 60? I think we ended up, I think our suggestion was 20 and 40, because we realized when we were playing it, it's like, because they also talked to us about the differences about the weapons. Like with the silencer, you won't see the fire like through smoke and stuff like that. There's
Yeah.
like an advantage, and with that you have to remove the advantage somehow. And maybe we remove the bullet stand. And the reason why they only had 40 in the magazine, as you can imagine, they were just sitting there spamming through the smoke, right?
Yeah.
So that, okay, we want to remove all of that. And the only other thing that they asked us for, and maybe this is where we have prevented Counter-Strike from ever having a TI, they actually asked us about that. They asked, what's your preference? Would you rather have this one massive grand event of the year, or would you rather have like some smaller ones? And we said we would prefer the smaller ones, because we kind of saw what happened with Dota with the one main event. It's cool. But look at it now, nothing else matters.
Hmm.
Literally nothing else matters. They literally just go through it, get to this massive event, and that's all for the marbles. And we're like, actually, like, we like the whole thing where it's like we're active, we're going somewhere, and like you have the ability. And it's not like majors are small, right?
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
they're not like crowdfunded TI events where it's like, oh, $100 million or whatever. If anything, to remove the esports cases, right, for all of that. And they kind of just wanted to make something consistent. That was probably like a part of us. Obviously, that's now 12, 13 years ago. But I feel like, and that was Ida that we're talking to, but I feel like it is probably as fundamental there that changed maybe a trajectory for Counter-Strike into not getting TIs, into like we would prefer to have more events. Smaller price pool is totally fine, but make them prestigious still.
Yeah.
And I think back then we had, I think maybe they were aiming for 3 majors a year. Now, obviously, we have 2, which I do think is like a good number.
I think that's healthy.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so as well. But yeah, I mean, listen, that was really all that came out of it. We same thing. These Valve devs have always been so welcoming and friendly in the sense of they would go to these events. And it's one of the funny things that I would say is because they are extremely intelligent. You got to give them. I'm sure when you talk to them as a player, you're very unreasonable. You go in and you say, "This is shit. Why is it this way?"
Yeah.
And they were always so good with like asking questions that kind of led you thinking. So they would never just tell you about, like, well, it's because it is this way.
Yeah.
They would have you kind of like, they would ask a question, they would have you think about it into like, you basically like caught yourself in some sense, a bit like, man, I kind of like made myself a fool. And I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying. And like a lot of that stuff, but it was like so fun to kind of get a chance to
Hmm.
have that experience and talk to the people that's making our game, right?
Yeah.
And like people just think like they don't listen or whatever. Dude, like there's so many things that they have done and so many things that probably like they're thinking about or whatever. I think the only other thing that we saw on that visit, and I don't remember when it came out, we saw the revolver.
Oh yeah. I'll
We did
never
see it.
forget the day that
I,
released. Oh
we,
my god.
we saw it, and I remember Force was like, because obviously Force liked the Deagle and whatnot. I remember we saw the revolver. I don't know if we got to try it or if we just saw the text in it, and they're like, oh, we're working on some things, we're cooking. Oh, okay. And then it came out. I don't know when it came out. It was years after.
Yeah, I think it was
Years.
like 2016, I want to say.
Which is
Something
crazy.
like
It's
that.
4 years after we see it. And they've never like teased it or whatever. And well, obviously, when it does come out, it is the most
Oh
busted thing
fuck.
in the whole game.
I played an
I didn't get to
entire
hurt it.
game of Cash, and like you could buy it on Pistol Round at this point,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
was a literal op. I played an entire game of Cash. Nobody used anything but the revolver. It was
Yeah.
hysterical.
Yeah, that was crazy. And I think they had one more where they had like dynamic pricing that was there for 2 days.
Yes.
Basically, if you buy a lot of Deagles, Deagle was like $12,000.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, that's probably not gonna work. But yeah, no. Outside of that, we never really got like special treatment or anything like that. Even considering, I think looking back, I do think had we not been as like active and like as positive about the game, like for example, it hurt me a little bit, and I had a really big like issue with how a lot of our pros talked about Counter-Strike 2 when it first came out. Like just a lot of these complaints, because from, and obviously I'm not part of it like super much. From what I saw was our fan base was actively pushing, get out CS2, take it out, come out. What's the point? Just bring it out in beta, whatever. Like they were pushing for the release. And then they released, and they said, well, no longer CSGO. Like now we're doing this. And now we're like, oh, the game's not ready. Why'd you release it? You guys asked for it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the major differences, for us is like in the beginning of CSGO, like I said, the game was not good. We were the best team in the world. We could have spent every day talking shit about the game. We knew that would not be helpful for the game. If anything, we wanted more and more people to play it because we needed, at the time, like people were still actively playing 1.6. They were playing Source. They're like, oh, screw Go. Like, we're not going to convert. We're not going to go over. We're not going to do any of that. Had we just been shit talking the game the whole time, like, what do you think? Right? So if anything, we're like, well, if this is the future, someone has to also be the brand and the spokespeople for the game. Again, Valve never asked us for any of this. They never, please talk, never a single ask. We just knew. So I got a little bit bummed when CS2 came out, and I see all these pros basically just shit talking the game, and they're like, I saw that Counter-Strike got some new developers in, and like we have the elitist crew where they're like, oh, he doesn't even know Counter-Strike, and be like, dude, had we done what we did in the beginning of CS:GO for the Idos of the world, or the Pigos or Brian, or like literally the list goes on, and we had pushed them out, what are you thinking? Like obviously now, like Ido is 13 years down in Counter-Strike knowledge and whatever. There's a ton of experience there. Like imagine losing a guy like that.
Yeah.
And here we are, all of our pros basically saying like, F Valve, like this game is shit. Can't believe you released like an unreleased product, and be like, well, actually, like again, we're thinking ahead, and if we're thinking about how does Counter-Strike continue to live on, like we have to be helpful. We can be positive. We can say that stuff are not good, but do we have to sit and like basically like flame the game every chance we get, or basically say like it's not like all of that? So I was a little bit bummed in like our current pros that they would go ahead and do that, versus I think that we are, at the end of the day, we are the face of the game, even for the casual audience. And if anything, Counter-Strike is so mainstream, like you even have during majors, like no matter what game you're in, you would be watching Counter-Strike. If you're a Valorant fan, League of Legends fan, Dota fan, you probably watch your Counter-Strike majors that have all of it. So it's like you have to in some sense like be that front figure and speak well, even if you might not think so. So yeah, I was a little bit bummed by that, but yeah, I mean to end on the Valve noise, but yeah, no favoritism, no nothing. If anything, we thought that we would get some.
And they were
Hey
just
Valve,
like, nah.
this bad. They're like, no, it's not happening, right? And looking back, you can appreciate it, right? Like I like that there's no bias in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people just assumed a lot of things about like us and our team back then, whereas they're like they got that, or when I mentioned the story with like we got to see Overpass before it got released, they're like, oh my god, you guys had an advantage coming into the major. But dude, the
Oh
map,
my god.
we got to see Overpass for 20 minutes. And they're completely different map, right? So I think a lot of people just kind of made up like stories in some sense, so like excuses as to like why we're so good. But outside of that, really like no special treatment, no nothing. People talk about it. I was the one who got to click the
I wanted to
update
bring
to
that
Arms,
up. Yeah.
right? And that was on for my whole team. We just did a rock paper scissors at the time. I don't think anyone like really want like. It was cool, but we didn't see it as like a big. I don't think anyone realized how big the skins piece
No.
would get to begin
No.
with. We just like, oh, this is cool. Like I said, Patrick and Forrest and friberg were definitely like already kind of addicted to it. They were sitting on the generator, right? But I think when it released, like we kind of, because it was the same, I think, release as the silencer.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of, when it came out, I don't even know if that video really like made headway in the beginning. I'm like, oh my god, NiP did it. I think we just did one video, but it comes back every few years.
It's history now.
Yeah, it's history now.
Yeah.
But that was a really cool experience, right? Like, and again, literally all I did was click. There's a bunch of code there, right? Yeah, we're releasing, and I got it. I'm not a game developer, back then you were just playing games. You're like, you have no idea how stuff works. But like, oh, okay, like, just click here and publish it. Like, it's live. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we went there, and then we flew to, I think, Texas, and it might have been 2013, I think, and won that event, and then and I flew back, right? And that's the only time I've been to the Valve office.
Oh wow,
Instead of
okay.
yeah.
So I wanted to get onto the whole arms deal update and everything like that too, because I think that's a really interesting topic. But I wanted to kind of go back a couple years into the
Yeah.
whole NIP era because you got to talk about that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, there's many successful first place finishes with the core NIP, the historical NIP roster that you were a part of. With CS:GO coming out, I know the CS:GO was trash when it came out. I never played it personally when it came out. As I said, I got into it 2015, but everybody says the same thing. So with you guys switching over to CS:GO now, did this kind of change pro play at all? I mean, there was a lot more to it, especially compared to Source and 1.6. I've always been curious on the transition to like a newer version of Counter-Strike, how that goes for the pro players. Something like what we saw from CS:GO to CS2 is drastic. Was it kind of the same deal with Source to Global Offensive, or not really as much maybe?
It was. So to give you an idea, like you said, the game wasn't very good in the beginning. I remember when the beta came out, we had access. I was living with friberg at the time in Dublin, Ireland. Um, right after CGS, I effectively same thing because the game was dying, and I was getting a little bit older at the time. So I'm like, it's really volatile, this space, and while I love it, I do find I found myself too wanting some stability. So in between there, I actually moved to Dublin, Ireland at the beginning of 2010, and I got a job at IBM.
Oh, okay.
Obviously a big step, right, in the sense like you moving away from like not only your home country, but like it's something new. You're no longer gaming, you're basically like working a real job. And I wasn't playing Counter-Strike 2010 to 2011. I had a full-blown break. I honestly thought I would retire, wouldn't be doing anything. During this time, as you can imagine, like most of my friend circle are all Counter-Strike players. They're all living at home or like they're not doing anything with their lives. I am the first one to move over to Dublin. And I realized it's actually like, it's intimidating, obviously, but the job was pretty good, right? Like the living conditions were great, the hours were good, and I'm like, man, guys, like you guys should all move here. And the way that IBM had, because they run customer service, so like they needed Swedish people in Dublin for Swedish customer support or like
Oh, wow.
for these businesses, like even say a pharmaceutical company like AstraZeneca, they would have say a Swedish branch, and with that, who ran AstraZeneca's IT support is IBM.
Huh.
So they would contract IBM to run that piece for them. So there's a lot of Swedish people in Dublin, and with that, as you can imagine, people don't really know about these jobs. So as you get in, a lot of these recruiters are like, "Yo, you have friends that speak Swedish? We'll teach them. If they don't know certain things, we'll teach them." So they have all the range from like customer service to like level 1 into level 4, like depending on your knowledge. Level
Okay.
1, if you ever called like I don't know AT&T rep, level 1 is basically the first person you get to talk to. They have very little IT experience. They ask you if you restarted your modem,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you go, oh, I've done all that, and then they go, oh, let me send you to my next tech, and you get sent basically to like level 2. It's very similar. But with that, because then how it worked, I referred a lot of my friends to IBM, and they ended up getting jobs.
Yeah.
One of them was friberg. friberg moved to, I think, Dublin back in 2011. I was there for probably over a year before he moved. But he moves then, and we get a place together. He's really into, at the time, if people don't know friberg was a bit of a new school person at the end of Source. Like he's very good, but he wasn't like notorious. Maybe the way that we would have our namesake. Like he was an up and comer, and it was actually one of my other friends that had talked me into like friberg. Like this guy is really good. We should give a chance on this guy. So we actually pick him up. This is in the beginning of 2011. I come back to Counter-Strike briefly. I want to have fun with it, so I was playing with some friends, and we were looking for a last player, and it ends up being friberg. And my experience with friberg back then was we couldn't scrim after 8 p.m. because his dad went to bed early and he had a small house. friberg is a
Oh.
loud guy and very competitive. So whenever he would play after 8, he would have to whisper. But as you can imagine, he dies and he would start to yell. And then you would actually hear the footsteps. You would hear the banging from the desk and go to bed. And we're like, dude, Adam, we can't like we're trying to at least be competitive here, man, and we can't even scrim. And I was like, you apply to this, like try and get in, right? That was the reason why I wanted him to actually like apply and go and join IBM, was so he could actually like move out so we can play games. But that happens, and then I think at the end of 2011, maybe beginning of 2012, the beta comes out, and friberg is playing it. He has me try it. I hate it. I'm like sitting like very rarely, like I do tilt on occasion. Those kind of games, it's like if you were to have me play Fortnite right now, the monitor is out the window almost after 5 minutes. Like I was so upset about like just how the game played, how off it felt or whatever. Really didn't like it at all. He kept on bothering me because at the end of the day, it was more fun to play with friends than it is to like not play at all.
Yeah.
And it was that event. So in 2012, I attend my last Source event. It's actually in Copenhagen. I think it's can't remember what it's called now. Back then, it was used to be called like SLKS. Copenhagen Games was the conversion. So the last event was Copenhagen Games. The Copenhagen Games had both 1.6 and Source and tournaments. And our sponsor for the event was Heat Gaming, the same sponsor that SK Gaming had from 1.6 and who played in SK Gaming. Forrest, Getright, Robban, like basically them. So the first time we ever meet each other is actually at this Copenhagen event.
Oh shit.
We're both teams are out of the tournament. It's like the final day. Copenhagen Games, for people that's unaware, one of the things that they were known for is because it's Denmark and you've been there now. They love to drink alcohol.
Oh
So
yeah, they
Copenhagen
do.
Games, yeah, they would have, and this was BOYC, bring your own computer and whatever. Like think at DreamHack, but they would have active bars in there. Like you would have people drinking and playing these tournaments. So we were out of the tournament. And everyone starts to have some drinks, right? And all of a sudden, we start to chat because we have the same sponsor. So the basic sponsor introduces us. And at the time, as you can imagine, it was all about, we didn't even talk about anything else. It was always about 1.6 versus Source. They would come and be like, oh, here's the shitters, or Source players, or whatever. And we're like, yeah, you guys are garbage too. And I remember that night, I probably had like a 1 year or a 1 hour discussion / rant with Robban, the FaZe GM now, obviously former coach. Like
I met him
that guy.
at Austin. Yeah.
You met, yeah.
Yep.
Probably for an hour, basically him shit talking Source, me shit talking 1.6, and like it was all fun and games. After the event, like obviously we had a good time. So after the event, we go home, and friberg gets them to play the beta. I think we're talking about it a little bit, as we're drinking and stuff, and everyone was very competitive in nature. So I probably would be like, oh, sorry, go, it's probably shit, but I'm still gonna be better than you guys, right? Like probably those conversations they ended up starting. So that's basically like we played the beta in the beginning. Had really no thoughts about it. And I feel like I can't remember. Maybe there was like maybe one official tournament before. But after the event, then these guys go back and they play the beta for 2-3 months. And as I mentioned, 1.6 at the time is dying. I think there's only a handful of events left. So it's Getright and Forrest. They have a conversation and they talk about like, oh, actually, maybe we want to convert the games. And this is now tied into our sponsor, right? Because they're also like, yo, you guys should swap the games. You guys should be early.
Yeah.
If this is the new thing, you guys should be early. And like, if anything, like, what if we combine like the games, right? Like 1.6 players and Source, and we combine or whatever. There's a lot of conversation in the beginning. I'm so honestly genuinely surprised still to this day that I was considered in some sense. But I also go back and I think about like where I was in my life, like at the time, 7 years into being an in-game leader. When Go first came out, it wasn't the same game as Source, but it had a lot of the mechanics and a lot of like maybe how the game played was much closer to Source than it was 1.6.
Okay.
1.6 was very clunky. You threw something, it's like you had the brick, like it's very slow in
Yeah.
general. Go try to take a little bit from like from Source. So even how you like threw nades would be closer to Source than it would be 1.6. So if you go back, you rewatch, it's funny because my 1.6 players, Forrest, Getright, and Xizt. Xizt actually learned pretty the quickest, but Forrest and Getright, like their nade usage, even at the end of their career, was really bad because it wasn't part of like 1.6. If anything, Forrest hated nades. You just throw them away. I don't want anything to do with
you guys use them.
You would have all these moments where, because in 1.6, the way that the map clips is very different. You can stand right next to a wall and you can throw it in this little small, and it will go through. And obviously in Go and in so you wouldn't. You would hit the wall. So you have so many of these moments, and the way that the nades kind of played was closer to source, where then these 1.6ers kind of felt like, well, how do we get into the game the fastest? It's not by having 5 1.6 players basically convert, right? We saw that in CGS, like it takes them a while. But what if we get people that was good in source as well, that's able to teach us and get us up to speed as much as possible? So that was, so to your point about like the change, I would say one of the things that I learned to like realize was when you compare the games at the end of 1.6, it was very individual. While they used nades and stuff like that, like it was more, it wasn't like full executes. It wasn't like really strategic. It was like, you know, a lot of individual, you know, the Forest and the Get Rights, even the Neos back in the day, they had the aim enough and the movement enough where really they just wanted to go and aim instead. And it was a little bit more like that. You still use some nades.
Yeah.
Source was the complete opposite of that. You know, at the end of Source, the best team in the world was Very Games. Extremely strategical in the sense that they were extremely execute heavy. While they had the individual skill, they would back it up with like these like set executes that just you just couldn't deal with. Uh, Go comes out then, and this is where I think it is fun because you are basically meshing two worlds, and this is where, you know, my relationship with Xizt really becomes apparent, because since I'm coming from Source and Source is much more execute heavy, I'm coming in basically, you know, and I'm so appreciative of my team back then, because I came in and I didn't really care if I was playing with Forest or Get Right or like for me they were just pieces of the puzzle of like, well, you can be as good as you want. I still need this flash, like I still need these executes and whatever. I still need that, and I would be a little bit more anal in the sense that like I feel like we missed something, or like the flash was thrown in
Okay.
properly. I would be much more by the book. Xizt coming from 1.6, he was much more free for all, right? He would be like, let's do defaults, let's go and murder people, and let's make a decision later. You know, let's make a decision mid game.
Yeah.
So there was like this contrast between us, where, you know, I would bring in the executes, or even if he wanted to do defaults a lot, like my opinion was like, we still need to be able to hit the bomb site properly, right? And we should have set things and whatever. So it's why these conversations in the beginning of Go, I was the game leader for the first event. I think for the first 4 months. One of the feedbacks that I got then, and again makes sense. I had, you know, looking back, I had basically the two best players in the world, right, in Force and Get Right, and I was basically keeping them on a leash, right? Fucking stupid, right? So actually, they were the ones who said like, "Listen, Robin, if any, I actually feel like you're a little bit too strict. Would love to play a little bit more like freestyle or whatever." And Xizt was also an in-game leader in 1.6, right? So we had two in-game leaders on this roster. So after 4 months, the conversation came and we swapped. So basically, Xizt became the primary in-game leader. I was secondary, and you kind of see a swap in us there, because we basically go from playing a little bit like Source, like execute heavy, like play by the book, into after that. I think the first event right after this first one is DreamHack Valencia, where we play Very Games in the final.
Okay.
There's I think interviews there where I'm nervous, right? Because I know how Very Games was in Source. Game is very similar. I'm like, listen, and you know, my 1.6 players were like, who the fuck are these guys? You know, well, you're just bullshitting, like, screw these guys. And I'm like, no, listen, guys, like, for sure, like, they're really good.
Lock in.
And they're like, yeah, well, yeah, whatever, dude. And we finally get to play them in DreamHack Valencia in the final, and they were not good, right? Like, they were actually, if anything, they were not playing the game. I think that strat heavy, like the execute heavy, works if you play against teams that's terrified. My team could care
Okay.
less. They were just running them down. You know, like the scores in the beginning versus Very Games, like we are talking like they got a few rounds. You know, Kenny S, they used to be, you know, Kenny S was supposed to be the new Simple or Saiwu, and he was. Now versus us, completely choked every single game. So they have massive issues, right? So like, so we had swapped, so it gone like the whole NiP career for me. It was all like, I called a few events, but it was always kind of like me running this strategical. I'm doing the rounds, I'm making them, and then basically give it to Xizt to have in his like arsenal and stuff like that, or things to call. But I think that's also what made us really good, where we effectively we had two in-game leaders, two very unique styles. And you can make the argument right now, had this been this day and age, that would never work. They would just argue all the time, and it would be like, oh, we're doing this and this. So even right now with Xizt, he's a coach right now. Xizt, I don't think would be this strategical heavy coach that would go in and do all the strats. But I think he would find the use and the personalities and fit them where they need to be the best, and like play this loose style and then use Snappy, for example, then into the heavy like strategical side. Like maybe a good example of that is like Navi with Blade. Obviously, Blade is very not controlling in a bad way, but like very much he knows how he wants to play the game, how the
Yeah.
strat should look, how the run should look, versus say maybe Taz from like G2 before, or like a Neo from FaZe. They're gonna be more, well, I have my in-game leader, like Kerrigan there's gonna know how he wants to play the game. I'm here to make sure that the people are doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Very similarly to how we brought in Pita as our coach for the first time ever for the major we won. We told him, we don't need you to come in and fuck up a bunch of our rounds and do a bunch of shit. We just need a third person perspective, because we were so close where it was hard to give people feedback. You know, if like Getright would like miss a flash, it was hard to like give him feedback in that sense, like if you missed a flash, because it was like very personable. So like we were looking for someone that could just come in third party, completely unbiased, and be like, hey, you guys missed this flash, you guys did this, you guys did that. It was really just to like keep people in check. It wasn't to like reinvent a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I mean, that's um, speaking about the changes. Yeah. So I mean, that's I think in the beginning of CS:GO, I think we did create our own unique style where we talk about the meshing of the two worlds. If very game stand came from Source, super strategical and execute heavy. We had obviously 1.6 teams that went over as well, like that. The old VP lineup with Taz and Neo and them,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they had the original. You know, you compare the differences. You look how they played the game. They played it like they played 1.6. They played it like they were run and gun, and you know, I think they were good versus certain teams, and they were struggling against a team like Very Games. And then we had ourselves basically coming in, and we say, well, we want to be a little bit of everything. You know, we definitely want to keep the 1.6 trajectory, like you know how they play the game, like the fast game and the individualism, but we want to be able to back it up with the set executes or like these nice flashes and whatever. And people don't see it nowadays, and we didn't have these stats obviously back when we were
Yeah, it's
playing.
really in depth these days.
Yeah, reading that, and it's a shame we don't, because I think people would get a very different picture on how like our team was actually like made, because we couldn't drop nades, right? The way that you do now, like, oh, I'm gonna go B, I'm gonna drop a bunch of smokes, and I'm gonna get out of there. Like we didn't have that, so we had to be much more. Like I had to be very smart with my utility usage, because I knew that the other people would just throw them away. So like you would have a lot of these moments where Friberg going first wouldn't use anything and be like, well, then he's just dry peeking shit. Be like, yeah, you're dying. Someone has to throw that flash, right? Or like someone has to do these things. And we had like a really good model where we had a lot of individual players, and then you basically had myself that was like really strategical, and then eventually like you had Xizt a little bit on the side like a secondary. But then if you think about our composition, Friberg was extremely aggressive. Like think Yakindar almost right now, where like there's no way he's not gonna have his weapon up. And if he does, it's when he's in one-on-one situations, and then you can really see how much he has never thought about nades, because he would just pick them up randomly. But dude, just shoot guy.
Yeah.
Right. And then you would have, say a Forest would be, well, I don't even want to have to think about these nades. So he would throw away all these nades after the first 15 seconds. Because if someone asked him, does anyone have a flash? He could be like, not me, not me.
Oh my god, that's
Yeah,
so
and
funny
then
to me.
yeah, and then you had Getright. Getright obviously got known for his lurk style, and if anything, we're very different compared to you see nowadays. But Getright would at most times, let's say we're playing Inferno, we're hitting B. Getright is all the way on apps in like A, right? So his nades are, you can't think about them at all, right?
Yeah.
Like they're there for him. Like he
Yeah.
would use them for him. So then it leaves myself and Xizt. As Xizt, it was always between us in terms of like, well, how are we actually doing this? How do we allow these players to actually play the game that they want to play, but for us to actually get like stuff done that we want to get done? And he was always part of the group. You would always have like, let's say you take Catwalk on Dust 2, you have Fabric go first, then you would have Force or Xizt. Those 3-pack would always be there. So with that, you would always basically have someone maybe that would be like closer with his nade usage than, for example, me. I would be down in mid throwing up the flash on Catwalk for these guys to come in.
Oh, okay,
So
I
I think
gotcha.
there's a lot of these like systems where, you know, preemptively, like you talk about strats or whatever, a lot of it was really just how do we set up our really good individual players for success where they can just focus on what they do best, which is just shooting people in the head. And how can, you know, myself then in some sense just make sure that that happens, right?
For sure.
And usually when you're that dominant, that's why it's unfortunate there's not enough stats nowadays, because I think all people just see is KD. Right, and you know, I was in the position, and sure, I could obviously been a lot better individually, blah blah blah. But I think what they don't see there is just the setup and stuff. And I've tried to talk about a lot where, you know, if I'm coming in as basically the fourth player, and you're, I don't know, taking long on us too. If I'm coming out as fourth, either all the opponents are dead because my teammates, the three that goes out before me, have gone their flash, they've gone their kills, and I come out and I'm like, woo, nice, long is completely clear, let's go and plant a bomb.
Yeah.
Or I go out because they have died,
And you're
right?
looking at
And
like
then
3
now
barrels.
I'm looking at 3 barrels, and then who's flashing for me? Well, obviously no one, right? So then now I'm dry peeking. So it's like a lot of those moments where like I would always try and explain of like I think uh, the way that I would always look good would be when the team is winning, and you wouldn't see me like dropping a bunch of like bombs in that sense. I did convert a lot when I moved over to Go from Source. In Source, I wasn't an opper, I was a rifler. Maybe I opt on occasion. When we moved over to Go, we never thought about team composition when we first made a team. Like we just, you know, oh, these guys and these guys, they would work well. We had a sit down and we're talking about what everyone likes to do. And we go around and we're like, huh, does anyone op? And they're like, ah. And then Forrest actually were like, oh, I used to op like back in 1.6. Like I could do it. And obviously Forrest at the end of 1.6, like you would commit a felony if you have him up. Let's just say that. Like you would, there would be such a stupid mistake. Like he was so good, right? So we're just sitting a bit of, man, like what? We have no offer. Like, okay, like get right. I mean, no, you're lurking, but like, okay, well, and friberg, you never. There's a meme where it's like friberg only picks up the op in like important rounds or whatever. He shouldn't pick it up at all. So it kind of just leaves me, right? And I'm like, okay, well, listen, like I don't mind, right? Like at the time, we weren't super op heavy. Like we didn't have op was not as good as it is maybe nowadays or at the end of CSGO where you would have like the Cyrus and whatever. I think that came later. Really, the op back in the beginning of CSGO was more so like hold an angle, right? Get the kill, fall back. Like you don't have to be super aggressive. Especially not our team. We had aggressive players as it was. So I was like, listen, I can do that, right? So and I felt that it was natural because obviously when I said that I was also in game leader. So think Fallen in game leading with an op, right? Like you have so much control of the map and you have so much info where you can actually like versus if you're a Kerrigan, for example, you're running first, you're getting the insight where he's running in. It's hard to realize what's going on in the rest of the
Yeah.
map, right? You're basically hoping now for your secondary, then, you know, for Kerrigan, maybe back when he had ROPS, right? Like you're hoping for that. But the Fallen one, for us at least, it felt more natural because I can control the pieces a little bit more. But yeah, no, so that's basically how it came to be. Where, and in the beginning, you'll see the op wasn't so important. Where like maybe I would pick it on per occasion. It started becoming more important. Train came out. You know, cobblestone overpass, like kind of opping maps where you kind of force yourself. Okay, you have to play it more and more, and that's where I would argue like I'm a much better rifler than I am an opper. I'm not an opper in general, right? Like I just picked it up for the team. And I think at the end of like my career, at least, that's when you start to see these like actual operas come in, right? And they're taking up a lot of space. And
They're just
like,
hitting W key.
yeah, and the game changes a lot, right, in how it's played in that sense. And you know, for me in the beginning there, I think that's the one thing if people ask me. But this was like an answer I did 5 years ago. People asking me, what would you have done differently, Robin? And I would have said I would have never picked up the op. But I think now looking back now 10 years, I don't think that I would say that. I think, you know, at the end of the day, you know, what everyone's role in that team was is what made us this team, you know. They replaced me with an opera Michael Lele, right? And he was there for 3 months. Like it's like I think you can work. I always ran with the mentality of like, well, listen, even if we don't have the best opera, we just have to work with it, right? There's other ways of winning without having like this person, like Donk is a great example of that right now,
Yeah.
right? That like you can like play the game without needing it certain ways, and that's how we have to do it. If we are playing against a good opera, yeah, maybe we don't have an opera where I can go head to head with Simple or like Kenny S. So like Kenny S is a good example in Very Games. what was our strategy versus these guys? Well, fucking avoid the guy. Flash him away. Like, let's not take unnecessary duels that we can't win. Just like kill everyone else. And what is he gonna do, right? Try and
Yeah.
retake with an op on 04. Like, yeah, and that's it never played good versus us, right? So I think now I wouldn't say actually I regret any of it, because I think like looking back and seeing the results and seeing what came out of NiP after I got booted and all that, like if anything I'm like very proud of the decisions that was made there, because I think had the decisions not been made, I don't think that we would have seen the 87-0 record that we have, or like any of that. I think everything kind of like built up for like the moment.
And I wanted to bring that. I'm glad you mentioned the 87 map win streak. I wanted to bring that up because what an absolutely incredible, like, I don't even know where to get started with this, but like it's such an incredible achievement. And like I think about it like when I'm making these questions up and doing my research and stuff, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, what do you have to practice and what has to happen, like the mental pressure of going into a game going, is this going to be the game that breaks the streak? Vitality just had that.
Yeah,
I'm certain I forget exactly where it was. It was very recently where they just
I think
lost their
37
yeah
and 1 maybe they hit or something.
yeah, and it's like you have to be going into every game thinking like just the pressure's just got to be up to your neck. Like what is that, especially from the era of in NiP where you were, what was that experience like?
It's
87.
I know, it's crazy. Right? And
Crazy.
it's funny in the moment. I don't think we like think about it too much. Like I think where we were struggling a little bit, and I don't even know when we first started having these conversations, like during then, about like, oh, you guys are 47-0, whatever. I'm not sure when it actually started. I think where we were at with things was we were so clearly the most dominant team at the time. Like Very Games would beat everyone, and then they would hit us, and it would just falter, right? And everyone that came over, even the old VP, and like all these teams, would go in with the mindset of like, well, what's the point in anti-stratting this German team? Like at the end of the day, if we're going to win the event, we have to beat these guys, right? So it would be like when you talk about like these anti-stratting and stuff. Now, sure, there's less programs back then, right, than it is nowadays with all that. Like you can get so much info now from like these third-party data sites for like
Yeah.
even heat maps or like all that. Like you actually had to like do some work back then. Um, but no, I think we came in with the mentality every event to only play our game. It's funny at the end of my career, I think, or not at the end, the right before I'll come back to it, but right before Katowice 2014, the major that we win, I'm calling that event. And one of the things we actually as a team never really did, I was against this, and if anything, I didn't quite appreciate how we did this. But Xizt's mentality always was, I don't want to watch any demos. I just want to play my game.
Oh damn.
I just want to play my game, So he doesn't want to give anything, he doesn't want to overthink anything. He's like, doesn't matter what they do, as long as we play our game, we win. We would always come in with that same mentality, right? So we would always come in, like you said, like we would never watch anything, never watch any demos, barely watch any of the games. We literally just come in and play our game, but we know for a fact that all these guys are just straight watching us, right?
Yeah.
Which is where like it's very like it's a weird position to be in, because at the end of the day, when you're winning so much, it's hard to know what you're actually not good at.
You're
It's so
just
hard to
used to it. It's like
know.
autopilot.
Yeah, it's autopilot. And you look at the stint of our record, there are so many of these matches where we shouldn't have never have won. And that's where NiP magic comes in. That we basically make that framing, because there are so many games where we on a fucking whim just come back and we win. There's I think a famous one with Very Games where we got 2 rounds, I think, on T-Side on Nuke 13-2, and we go and beat them 14-1, like basically win the game. It's like no matter what people try to do, we would always just have the advantage.
Yeah.
And I think that's where like the mindset, I would give a lot of praise to my teammate. I don't think I've ever had a team who has had such a strong mental in general for things, like never really giving up. No matter if we're like 15-2 down or whatever, like there was always this mental in this roster where like we're not out yet, right? There's very little times where we'd have defeat. So when this record starts to being talked about, I mean, honestly, like I think back then we were mostly frustrated because if you look at our map pool, like our best map is Nuke by far. And we go so far into being so dominant on some of these maps where Valve is basically removing our best maps. They removed Nuke because it's like we were unbeatable. Like we were, I think, 26-0 on Nuke alone. Whereas like actually
crazy.
because everyone then knows, well, we got to beat NiP in the final. What ended up happening was every single team would now have Nuke as their insta ban. It didn't matter if they didn't play us or not. They would just not practice it because they know we're not beating them on that map anyway. So then Valve sees just this massive dip in like maps being played, and they're like, well, no one's playing Nuke anymore. Remove it. Then it happened with Train, which was our second best map, right? And then it happened with Inferno. So like they just kind of continued. And meanwhile, we're just sitting there, and again, we're not thinking about anything. We're not going into these events. And I think that's where I think maybe we had it better than Vitality did, because there was no one back then. No one was keeping track of records back then for like a previous. Like there wasn't a 1.6 record, I think, or a source record with like a team going 40-0 or whatever. Oh, we're almost there. We're almost beating it. No one was tracking anything. So for us, we were just like, we weren't keeping track of any records. We came in, same as every event. We came in with a mindset of we're here to win the event. We don't care how we do it. We never thought, XYZ or whatever. It was, I think, maybe after 60-0, they start to talk about it a little bit. And I think probably that's when like the mental creeps in a little bit. Because like you're saying, now you're coming into the event and be like, oh, is this going to be it? We knew obviously that we are going to lose eventually. Like, and we have seen like maybe the fans didn't see it, but like from where we were sitting and like playing, we were increasingly finding it harder and harder, even in scrims. We were finding it harder and harder in official games. Like people were like starting to figure us out a little bit. Like we knew the writing was on the wall. We didn't see it as a bad thing because, like I said, like losses makes you realize what you can do better.
Absolutely.
And we didn't have that for a year, right? We were literally just playing our game. So
A
it's like
solid
if any
year.
right. But you can make the argument there, and look, it probably same thing will happen with Vitality now, maybe, and maybe they come back. But it's like when you hit that peak, you're actually now a little bit behind in the
Yeah.
meta. You start losing because you have spent the first year really not like improving as much as you can. So you're a little bit behind. Now we were still good. I always use the example if you go back and like some of the games that we lost, like for example, we lost the Katowice final versus VP. We got 2-0. We were also the team that would always learn from our mistakes, and we would never lose twice in a row versus any team. So that VP game, we lost in the final 2-0. We played them again 2 weeks after. We beat them 2-0 at Copenhagen Games finals. The Fnatic team that beat us in DreamHack Winter in 2013, same thing. We played them, I think, probably like 3-4 times after that. Completely just demolished them into them making player changes. So you can make the argument there, like actually, I talked about my team's good mental. For the majors, we had the worst mental. I think that we came into those events expecting to win, heavy favorites, and we were playing that we didn't want to lose versus playing to win, right? And I remember that, especially in the final versus Fnatic, clear favorites, cameras everywhere, everyone just leading up to that moment, and all I'm thinking is just don't lose, just don't lose. We've never done that before. We've gone in to be like, just fuck these guys, run them over. Well, who the F are these guys? Doesn't matter who we're playing against, right? So I think that was more the mindset of like, well, there's an expectation from us in winning. But I'll say that the record, it's so here's one thing I'll say. I think had we not attended the last event, this is a Star Ladder event that we lose the record in 87-0. We lose versus Sana Dragons and Star Ladder in Ukraine. I would venture to say, had we not attended that tournament, we would have had an even higher record. That tournament to me, if you think about the team that beat us, it's a Russian and Ukrainian team. We were playing in Ukraine in an internet cafe where the speakers are blasting Ukrainian shoutcasters. So like, I'm not saying anything, but I do think that they got a bit of assistance. That game, or that event in general, it's very easy because we don't understand the language, right? So it's
I
very
was
easy
gonna
to
say,
commentate.
yeah.
Yeah, so like if let's say and obviously as you can imagine, all Ukrainian fans in there too, right? It's like it's just like a local event. So if they are saying something, commentating, they're like, "Oh my God, NiP is faking A going B," right? Like the headset weren't good enough to like, they could hear that,
Yeah.
right? And it felt really weird. Like I remember playing that game because it felt like a really weird game to play because no matter what we did, we would just run into 4 people and be like, it's like really weird. And two maps, and they beat us again. They beat us in upper bracket to break our record, and then we came back in the finals. We played them again in the final, beat us in the final as well. And then same thing right after that event, we played them at another event, and that's nothing on them, but more so like how we adapt. They didn't beat us again, right, for like a few months. So no, I mean, but anyway, so after that loss, no one is bummed. If anything, to your point, I think a lot of pressure gets lifted off of our shoulders. The first thing really that happens is like I don't even think like I don't think people realize really or understand like how to react because we haven't lost yet, right? So it's like
Yeah.
we like lost. Like I think it's like a bit surreal. But the first thing that happens is Forrest takes off his headset. He starts clapping. Be like, guys, do you guys
Finally.
understand what we have done, right? Or like in terms of like what we have accomplished, 87-0. Like it was just more so like how proud everyone was in that sense. And if anything, I think after that was said and done, like you said, there is a mindset there probably at the end where nice. Now we can just focus on playing the game again. None of
Finally
this like
breathe.
records or whatever. Right. And there's some more. I know that Vitality beat us in one records now with the best of threes because we played a lot of best of ones.
Okay.
Back in our day, we would have best of ones in groups into best of threes in playoffs. So we would have a lot more versus we would have more best of ones than best of threes and best of fives. So I think Vitality did beat us by I think 1 or 2 best of threes that they're over. So I think they're 26-0. I think we were 24-0. I'm not sure. We obviously still keep the 87-0, and I still think we have the most consecutive number of map wins, which is Nuke, in 26-0. I don't think so. I think we still have 2 records currently unbroken. And then the third one, then Vitality just broke recently. So it's crazy to think about.
It's
Crazy.
mind blowing. Like I don't think, especially the 87 map win streak, like who is going to do that?
No, it's
Who else is
surreal.
going to
Like
do that?
I try and explain it now because I'm obviously in different titles and stuff like that, and I, like especially for let's say my league team right now, they're they probably have not even heard of a Counter Strike, or if they have, like definitely not 10 years ago, and everyone you mentioned, like it's funny, it's where it comes up where they don't even say, oh, this is fifth, they made a champion. They go, this is fifth. They went 87 wins and 0 losses offline event. And people get blown away, right? Because I use the example for say, in League of Legends then, because they have the league and they play maybe 30 games a year. So when you tell them that we were 87-0, they're like, wait, you played in that stadium like 3 years and you never lost a game? It's like, yeah, well, not as the same, but like they just kind of see the pictures and they get blown away, right? And it's like, yeah, I don't think like I said during the moment of whatever, like I think looking back, I think it's really cool to look back in. I think the more every year goes by, though, you will have basically the new generation of fans basically like downplaying it. Like they were playing plumbers, and be like, dude, I hate that statement because at the end of the day, it would have been different had there been no Counter Strike game before Go came out. Counter Strike was around for 12 plus years in 1.6 and Source and whatever. Like you talk about, like people not even have to play the game. The plumber joke is actually from Sponge because same as for me. Then when he stopped CGS, Sponge went into because I think his dad ran a plumbing company. So he went to work for his dad. So Sponge used that joke about they were winning against plumbers. I was a plumber, and be like, well, listen, Sponge, you were playing for 8 years before. It's like if I say that you were like playing as an IT tech, I'd be like, no, of
Yeah.
course not. And I think they've been riding with that, and I think they fail to realize that, like, no, like, listen, that like the teams that we beat, like the Very Games of the world, Very Games was undefeated in Source for 2 years. Like they never tracked it, right? And like the end of 1.6, like the VP roster with Tesla, dominant. The Markelovs of the world, Ukrainians, the Edwards are dominant, right? Like you're basically downplaying their whole career by saying that we just beat plumbers and
Yeah.
whatever. Like we played legitimate teams, and I'm extremely proud. And if anything, I do feel like we set the stage for like Go or like Counter-Strike in general with that run. Like people said that we were killing the game. I actually don't think so now looking back. I think if anything, we got a lot of hate watchers. Like, people were like, is this going to be the game that NiP loses, right? Is this going to be the one? That game we lost back then, and obviously nowadays the viewership is, but I think that game we won, we broke the record for viewership, or the
Oh
lost
wow.
by like, probably 20K. Again, beginning of CSGO, right? I think we were sitting at like 70K or like 90K viewers. Nowadays, you're looking at 1.4, whatever.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
different.
Much different.
But like in the beginning, when you're going from like, oh, these events are hitting like 30K, 40K into that loss, I mean, like 70, 80, almost close to 100K. We were pushing in the beginning because IEM or ESL didn't run the IEM event, which is Intel sponsorship, in the beginning of CSGO, because Intel was worried about the game not being popular enough, and
Oh
they
wow.
had put an internal ticket and tracker on themselves that the game has to hit a certain viewership, and I think that was 75K or whatever. And then the year after, IEM comes. So it's like it all these kind of moves, and like the viewership increase now all of a sudden, and that viewership didn't go down then after we lost. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, they lost, but now it's competitive, like more teams can win, etc. No, so listen, I'm all super proud in general of the 87-0. I think it's hard to look back and like really think about, because sometimes I think if you were to show me a list of all these events we attended, I would be like, dude, I completely forgot. It was all a blur.
Yeah.
We were traveling every 2 weeks, like to every event that we could. It didn't matter. We didn't go for prize money, right? We just want to play the game. We'll go everywhere. Dude, there's so many events that some people would be like, oh, how about this event? And be like, oh, completely forgot about it. That's kind of how it feels like. Where it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we won, and I remember then the loss that we did. I don't remember much in between. It's crazy,
I mean, when you're that, like, you're at that tier and you're just, dominating and, lifting a major trophy and stuff, it's kind of hard to look at what's behind you because you're trying to keep, what's ahead of me right now. I need to focus on that. And then as soon as you achieve that, then you're doing the same thing again and then again and
Right.
then again and then again.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know, like, between the boot camping and the probably the days where you're not getting much sleep and you're practicing together and you're playing for a major and you qualify and you make it and you get to that major trophy and you get to lift that up, like, can you explain that feeling?
I think for us it was like surreal, right? Because we had lost 2 major finals before that. The first one, like I said, I think clear favorites to win it, and the only other team that had the ability to beat us at that time was Very Games. Very Games had made a change, I think 6 months prior. They had brought in Shocks, and they actually made their team a lot better. I think I still have maybe some trophies, but I remember like there's an ESL event in 2014 before the major, or sorry, 2013. It's an EMS event, I think, that was being ran. And I think for the 2 events coming into that DreamHack Winter 2013 major, we had actually lost the final versus Very Games. So we were coming in as favorites in some sense, but we knew that there is one team that has the ability of beating us. It's Very Games. So we actually had come in, and for once we had briefly looked into them a little bit. Just some small things. You'd always talk about like go-to rounds that you can kind of have in your back pocket that it's gonna like work. We had 2 of those rounds versus them, and if anything, I feel like probably what pushed us over the edge and beat them. Here's the problem with that is that Very Games actually messed up the group stage, as with every major. Some team that's supposed to not mess up messes up. They lose the one game, and all of a sudden the bracket is completely different. As you can imagine, it was supposed to be an NiP Very Games final. They lose the game. They end up on our side of the bracket. We played them in semifinal. So, technically our mindset is like Very Games. We beat Very Games, we win the major, right? So we're coming in there and we beat them. There's videos of us beating them in semifinal. It looks like we have won the tournament.
Like, you guys are just so hyped.
We're just so hyped, right? Because again, they beat us the last 2 tournaments. We had the camera crew, like we're a little bit extra pressure and whatever. And then on the other side of the bracket, who's waiting for us in the grand final? It's this like new like Fnatic roster that, quite fair, coming into their event, I don't think a lot of people had like really high hopes for, right? So I think we come into that and we probably take out the win in advance. Like I said, we're playing to not to lose, not to win. We lose, then I'm extremely bummed. Everyone's extremely bummed. The next one is the one in Poland, it's in Katowice. And we've done, and I say this story a lot when people ask, like, hey, Robin, when do you think your team was the best? And I always reference Katowice 2014. We didn't win the final, but up until that point, this team has never looked so good. Like, we were so good. I felt really good. I was calling. We had some anti-strats. Like, I remember playing against the Astralis, the major winning Astralis. This is around the time they were called Dignitas. Smashing them, like 16-3, 16-5 or something, you know, like two map in cinema final. Like, everything was looking great. And then Katowice comes, the final comes, versus them, basically the plow. Home advantage, Polish team. They were looking extremely good throughout the whole event, and we completely crumble. And if anything, I go back there and I put, and obviously I went 944 there, and I didn't perform really well. But I think one of the issues that we had with that final was that we maybe overdid it with the anti-stratting a little bit. And it wasn't necessarily like, and again, that wasn't us, right? We would play our game. But it wasn't necessarily like, I think I remember the game, especially on Mirage that we play. Every round at the beginning, the first 5 seconds, I actually call what they're gonna do, but we're not playing a game where we know what they're doing, but they're just running us over. They show no respect. We lose 2-0. Obviously heartbreaking. If anything, at that time, I do think like a lot of my teammates like are getting a little bit defeated, right? Like, we're still performing well, but it's something with these majors that's like our mental is like, we're not winning, like we're choking now, right? Or we're 0-2 in finals. And then Cologne hits, and that event doesn't start off really good for us. You know, we lose a game in groups. This is the first event where they add in cobblestone and overpass, and they do the randomizer third map.
Oh,
so if
yes.
there's 3 maps that they randomize, and you know, people go back and look at it because we got cobblestone a lot in our randomizer, and it's like, dude, if I'm Valve and I'm like, I have 2 new maps, I'm gonna give the 2 new maps just like a slight percentage increase. So, like, if it randomizes, what are the odds it's gonna land on cobblestone? It landed on cobblestone a lot for us. But in groups, we actually played cobblestone and we got destroyed by a French team. I think it's 66 or something. Like, we stood no chance. And we're coming in, and I think people are like starting to like PTSD a little bit, because now we're in lower bracket in groups. Here we are, NiP has never not made a final in a major, and now we're about to get eliminated in groups. And we played the lower bracket game versus the Ukrainian team. They're also very good. We ended up winning. That whole event for us is really bad, because if you look at like the final result, we have more round losses than round wins that whole event. We still win the event, which means that the maps we won were extremely close. The maps that we lost were not close at all. We got absolutely battered. So it's a really weird event for us, because we came in for the first time not being favorites. You know, if anything, people have just counted us out from like the get-go. And if anything, people felt that we were relatively weak. And for us, on our end, though, always had the faith, right? We knew that come majors, we become the best version of ourselves. Like, no matter what, coming into the final, well, we can play. And it was a slugfest throughout the whole event. Like, it was crazy. Even during, like, you look at these predictions, and NiP's gonna lose here, and NiP's gonna lose, they're never gonna make it. We come to the final, obviously, what do you think? Oh, NiP, obviously destined to lose, right? Like, these guys, they're so much better. And it was an insane final. Goes 3 maps. Fnatic ends up picking cobblestone against us, because again, we play it. Basically, they did a mistake we did versus VP in Katowice. There's a famous, if you go back and look at history, VP's best map by far was Mirage. That whole event, they played it every single game. My mentality was, well, there's so much data and info to grab from these, and we haven't played Mirage a single time this event. Like, there's an unknown, right? We can come in and really feel prepared here, and they don't know what we're up against. Backfired, obviously, massive versus, for us. Fnatic actually does the same thing to us in the Cologne final, where they first pick cobblestone. Where again, then they've seen that we've been struggling, right? We played it almost every single game. But here's what they didn't realize is, because the map is somewhat brand new, we make so many changes after every cobblestone game, that event, like even positioning, like how we played and whatever. We learned so much from it, where we come in then and we basically win that. And then we think, Cash is second map and very good map for us. There's a famous click from Xizt that's not from that event, but it was always our mentality, which is never pick Cash against us. And they, we did, but we lost. And then it goes third map, which is Inferno. And it was a slugfest. I don't think our T-side was very well, but that's really where the mental fortitude comes in. I think we have finally overcome the mental hurdle of, oh man, is this another major loss or whatever? Like, it's just the one map is Inferno, like obviously classic game. And we're able to go in and listen, we end up winning. I remember the last few rounds, I think, because I think I was getting a lot of flack in general. They always talked about replacing me and stuff. It was nice to have a series, especially in a final, where I felt like I carried my weight and I actually had rounds where I also helped the team win. So those final moments, they're incredible, because I think there's so much pressure that's just being lifted from us.
Yeah.
So much honestly heartbreak in general of what we should have and could have, had major spin around at the beginning of Go. We wouldn't just have the one major win, right? It's it was the one thing that always eluded us. Same with Grand Slam, we never had any of this stuff. But to be able to win, and I remember there's everyone gets super happy. The first thing that happens, I think, is that Forrest actually gets almost punched in the face because everyone's just cramming in. So he's sitting like this. He's happy. He's sitting like this. Get right. It's oh my god. And meanwhile, I'm hyping and everyone's just hype. And there's a blur. And I don't realize this, and you can see it in the video, I think, from when we lift the moment, where people are basically, I don't know if the admin said anything, but Forrest and friberg are basically standing right in front of behind the trophy, and they're talking and stuff like that. And I'm and I walk past and I'm like, guys, what the fuck? Why aren't we lifting up the trophy? Let's go. So I just go in there. I'm like,
Yeah.
No one is ready. No one is ready. My teammate, I think Xizt is still hugging Get Right in the back, and then they see the trophy lift, and they're they're running around. Get Right obviously sits there. There's a famous photo of Get Right hugging the trophy and crying, and Valve Devs comes up and finally congratulates us. Finally, congratulations. I think we never took photos with Valve until that major win. I think there's a photo of us winning the major with them. No, it's incredible. And if anything, I think it was more so for everyone's sake, in the sense of it's such a nice reward for everything that we have been through, and all the wins and all that. And it would have sucked to, for example, not win that one, right? And now being in this situation where I got dropped after that, and while we have the 87-0 record, I think that this whole thing with major champion does hold a lot of value.
Yeah.
Outside of the record, I'm being able to be I have one of these. I think that's looking back. I didn't put a lot of emphasis on it back then, but looking back now, I do feel it's actually it's really cool. We have been part of the history books, not only from the record, but we're actually in the game as well. Even though I don't have a photo in game, it's me and Devilwalk, I think. If you go back and look at all the winners, you click on NiP 2014 Cologne.
You guys don't have a picture?
I don't have a photo. Yeah, my name is there. I don't have a photo. Yeah.
Huh.
But listen, at least my name is in there. I can appreciate that.
We all know you did it.
Yeah. I still have, I have my Cologne in-game trophy, all that good stuff. And no, it's been cool to kind of go back and feel like you have been part of history in some sense, and especially being able to end it, that way. Especially now looking back, because I wasn't expecting Cologne to be my last major that I ever played. I was expecting to at least play DreamHack Winter 2014 as well. That obviously never ended up happening. It was my first event as a talent instead. But now looking back then and being able to at least go back and feel okay, actually, this is one of my last few events, and we're able to get a major, it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a piece of history, no matter how you look at it. A major is a major. It's like in hockey, or in Canada, sorry, we have hockey, and that's the finals for the Stanley Cup finals is lifting the Stanley Cup. Counter-Strike is kind of lifting the major, or winning the Super Bowl, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's cool to be a part of the history, right? And people every year will be the game was so bad, like the skill was so bad back then. But like you're saying, same with NBA. Like, do you think that 1956 NBA winners would have stand a chance versus 2024 winners? Of course not.
The
Like the game developed.
developments, yeah.
Yeah, I hate even like talking about like the what ifs. So like, oh, Prime NiP versus this. I mean, it's very different. If anything, I'm proud of, like, I feel like what we did and everyone that has had these, from us into Fnatic, into the Brazilians, into Australis, we have all paved the way, like, and developed this game into what it is now. Like what you see now is because of this, right? Doesn't happen overnight. All these changes, like literally every year, it's been so different in like a good way.
And it's
like
changing
people in these
constantly.
teams- Yeah, and that's why I love Counter Strike, because like there's so many ways to play the game, and every, as someone that's been around so much, it's so fun and interesting to me how like a team in Sweden plays versus team in Russia plays versus team in the US plays. So you would think, oh, it's just Counter Strike, plant, defuse, or whatever. How they approach it is so different. Where it's such a beauty, where the best way to explain it is chess.
Yeah.
You are thinking, the Kerrigan talks about too, of like, yeah, right now it's round whatever, round 2, but I am thinking about round 5 already, because I have to like make it seem like we're doing something that we're not. It's such an interesting and like cool game in that sense, where it does feel a little bit timeless. Even though we have the same maps, and obviously I like that we have like some change or whatever, the fact that there's always something that can like change. We're not in a situation with like, say, Valorant, where we're getting these like champion updates or whatever, or like, let's say in Counter Strike, the grenade would go like, oh, this season the grenade is 200% more damage.
Yeah.
None of that shit.
Yeah.
Like, no, nothing really changes. The fundamentals are there, exactly like hockey and football and soccer. Like, you have a ball and you have a goal, right? Like, how you get there, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So like I really appreciate, right? So now I think it's like been really cool to at least have been part of like the history in that sense, and like I said, being able to lift that major trophy and putting a name for ourselves, I think something that I'm gonna look back on for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely, rightfully so. So, in another note, I wanted to talk about more recent years. In 2023, Xizt Esports was founded by Jeremy Wang, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and people know him best as Disguised Toast. So, DSG is currently active in Valorant, League of Legends, and a few other titles, and you're the chief operating officer and co-founder. And I think it's really awesome to have a guy such as yourself in those positions in an organization, given the history that you have in esports. I wanted to know, how did you get involved with DSG, and how does it feel to be so hugely involved with an organization after your professional player career?
So how I got involved, honestly, is like small world, I guess, and a funny story. So when I retired, I moved to the States 2015, and I got a job at Twitch. This is right after Amazon had acquired them. And one of the goals from Twitch was obviously like, well, Amazon money, like we want to become bigger than what we are. And I got obviously a chance there to work on like global Counter-Strike partnerships in general, which was really helpful, because I think it also gave me another like look. Because when I was playing, a lot of people would be like, you should stream, you're gonna make a lot of money, you should do this, and be like, I would go live and be like, I made 10 cents, what is this shit? Like that's absolute BS. And they'd be like, well, there was like no education, right? So I think when I joined there, it was cool, because obviously there's a lot of networking, and you finally get a chance. And North America is very different in the sense of like how they operate and whatnot. But I'm at Twitch for basically the 4.5 years, and I come across this guy's Toast, Jeremy, like briefly. We don't really know each other or anything like that. But because of the networking, and like basically, he's a Twitch partner. And when I was at Twitch, we did a esports department. So I think there's basically like my name was around, and then this guy's Toast that basically made a tweet at the end of 2022 saying, "Hey, I'm looking to get into Valorant. What's the best team currently?" And like talking to him, basically you get a sense for like he just thought that he would just PayPal Five Guys money, and they would be called whatever he wants to be called, and that's the org, right? And I think he realized after he made that tweet that actually that's not the case. If he's gonna do it, he's probably have to do it a little bit more like serious and stuff like that. Especially, obviously, as you know, how many bad acting orgs are there out there. that don't pay, they don't do things properly, that scam left, right, and center. So he got introed to me from his business partner. Basically said, hey, you should talk to Robin if you're looking to get into esports. He's XYZ and whatever. So we have a conversation. And obviously, as you mentioned, the games that we're in, it's not Counter-Strike. But here's where I think my experience comes in. So I spent 5 years at Twitch, and I worked with, I basically ran Counter-Strike global partnerships for like the creator side, but I eventually ventured into Twitch esports, which is a separate department that we founded that would be focused on like all and anything esports. So to give you an idea, Its old league was called ECS. I was part of that. One of the co-founders of ECS that ended up making. We're doing a lot of like the tournament side, and the whole goal of that was that we would have game developers that might have the experience in like making a game, but they don't know how to run esports. Like our department would be for that. So I was doing that for 4.5 years, and my time in Counter-Strike, if you think about like my retirement or whatever, when I stopped, it was very kind of like sudden in some sense. Because like I said, I never thought that I would not play the last major of 2014, which is the DreamHack Winter. I thought that I would be playing, even though I knew that the retirement was looming. The timing didn't quite like work out for me. So I started doing obviously talent work, but I abrupted like my professional career so quickly. Like if you think about other players right now, Forrest came out with retirement after a year, having to be able to like sit and think about it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And, like for me, it was so sudden, and especially when the announcement came out, as you can imagine instantly, because obviously we go from I just won the major, right?
Yeah.
So every single tournament organizer messaged me saying, "Hey, we'd love to have you on the desk. We'd love to have you on the desk. Like, there's so much info, right? Like, we'd love to. We didn't have analysts back then, so I was like, okay, sure. Like, it gives me a chance to be part of like Counter-Strike or whatever. But I was busy with Twitch stuff, so you saw me in the beginning. I think there was a fun graph. I was surprised to see how many events actually I did as talent, because that was also a bit of a blur for me. But there's a clear like kind of like an indicator where I go down. I do start doing less and less events, and I think my last 2 years of Twitch, I started getting the Counter-Strike itch. Like, I want to get back into Counter-Strike again. Not maybe just as talent, but I was like, man, could I maybe go and join as a GM or like a head coach or like something? So that's the initial that I do. So I leave Twitch with the intent of coming back to Counter-Strike. And I interview, I think I interview for 3-4 orgs, all North American, because obviously I'm based here. And I ended up going with Dig. And that's where we get some of the players back. We had signed up to be part of the league that was its new league, Flashpoint, that was going to come in, and obviously now COVID hits.
Yeah.
So it's like really bad timing. So basically the team that we had formed, which basically Offline Legends, and it's really hard to play online if you have one major. It's like, what is there to play for? Like this whole thing, like playing at home. Like I was doing that when I was 15. Like I want to go to these events, and then COVID is here, and be like, well, there's really hard to play and like online environment and whatnot. But I really want to come back. So, but we weren't in there for, I think Dig was maybe in Counter-Strike for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. COVID is obviously in this at all times. But I really want to get back. But then I'm at Dig, I think for 3-4 years. I leave, and my time at Dig, and it's not their fault. It more so, I think, this is my first time experiencing American esports, what that actually entails. Before, I've been in Europe, I've done Twitch and I've done creator side. I haven't really been part of like a day-to-day in an American esports org before.
Yeah.
And I got and it was very different for me, because like I explained to you in the beginning of the interview, there's like, I think America is much more about like instant success, short term,
money.
And I was struggling with that, when I first joined, and I realized it wasn't just the one org issue. It's like the whole thing. And I found myself like really not enjoying it at all. If anything, I felt like we were using a lot of people, whereas like, man, we're not like setting these guys up for success. And be like, we're not really like doing what we're saying we're gonna do, and like the support where like the region is talking about, like, it doesn't exist. And I just found myself, I'm like, man, is this like, thought I want to get back, but is this really how I want to get back? Is this really how I want to do things? like I said, I had a ton of like those issues. So when I left, before then the conversation with this guy's host, I was done with esports. I was like, dude, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna apply for a job at Blizzard. I'm gonna go work on Diablo or something. You know, just be done with it. I still want to be in gaming, but maybe not in esports.
Mhm.
But I get a chance to talk to him then. You know, the first thing that for me was you have an authentic person that is endemic to the space. You know, if you look at a lot of these American orgs that has been acquired by VC money, they have been given a CEO that is not from the space. They have been given a CEO that is there for like to make money or like
Yeah.
results and whatever.
It's a
And very
business to them.
it's a business, exactly, right? And you have a few like C9, you know, with Jack, or like Team Liquid with Steve, endemic. And you can honestly, you can see that based on their results too, on how they're doing things versus like maybe some other people. So I was like really like, you know, I don't want to go and rejoin another like VC funded org. That was like my mentality of like, I don't want to come in with an intent of like, well, I know we need time, and instead, you know, you give me 2 months and it's like make it or break it, and it's like I said, money, money, money. I wasn't about it. So I got a chance to talk to him, and there was a clear, just a passion for gaming. You know, like he watches. It sounds silly, right? But in the this space, it was the same when I was working at Twitch. There was a lot of like engineers that never even knew what Twitch was or barely even watched. Because to them, it's all code, right? It's all code. They're just coding something. So I was increasingly getting more frustrated in sense like I'm here because I'm passionate about the space. Like I want to do this because I'm passionate. It's not about the money to me or whatever. It's not about like the instant success or whatever. Like I think I love like building in that sense. And I was feeling very bummed. But yeah, getting a chance to talk to him, like you have a guy that's just passionate about the space. He's endemic. He watches. He plays. Right. He's involved and he's invested. He just doesn't have the experience to like properly run it. So I said, listen, man. Like I think if you want to do this, I had agreed initially for him to just help him out for 3 months. Like we'll find a team, I'll do the contract, you know, we'll set up everything, the LLC and all that good stuff. Just to kind of have him situated, right? And
Yeah, set
kind of
them
see
up.
it as a fun little, fun little thing, right? And 3 months go by, and our first team was a Valorant team, and we try to qualify for basically the tier 2 circuit here. The first time, right? And we go through open qualifiers and stuff like that. And that was really the first intent for him, where he just wanted to go through, field the team for open qualifier, see what happens. The team ends up winning, so they end up qualifying into Challenger, and then with that, I think he actually, because if you go back and watch, there's a lot of enjoyment from him. Like he's watching, it's fun, he's someone to cheer for and stuff. And because they made it, then he goes back to me. This is now January 2023, and he's like, "Hey, Robin, what are you thinking about like just continuing? You know, coming and just continue running this for me." And at the time, you know, like I said, my bad experiences, like, or not even just the one word, but more so how American esports was done. This interested me a little bit more because, again, I was never about the money. I don't need the $2 million to build a team or whatever. If you give me, you know, the scraps, like I find enjoyment in like the long-term build and development or whatever. So I actually felt like this one was different. I was also obviously put in a situation where a lot of the issues that I had with maybe how we treated players or like some of the contracts or all that, I was now in a position where I can change that. You know,
Okay.
because I am the COO, but you know the one person that's over me is this guy's toast, and there's a trust there that's being put because he doesn't have the experience, right, to run companies. Like he's the face of the company. He's never done esports before. He's never gone on contracts before, right? He just wants to make sure on his end that he's like covered and safe and like he doesn't get screwed over.
Yeah.
My stance on that has always been like, well, listen, we can both not be screwed over. You know, like there's so many times where I'm sure you've heard like a player is in contract jail or whatever, right? And I'm like,
Simple was in contract hell for what,
right,
9 years?
right. Simple, simple. Yes, Simple was tied to so that's where like it's a little bit different because Simple is tied to sponsors where like they have gone and they say, hey, Intel, we have Simple on the roster. We need blah blah blah, and then now he has deliverables tied to the sponsor. So there was always tied
Oh,
into if you want Simple, not only is there a buyout. Well, imagine if Simple leaves and Intel is like, well, wait a minute. Well, he was part of the like, okay, boom. So that's
damn. Okay, I didn't know
but
that part.
that's for like the biggest of names, right? But like there's so many cases, especially in North America, right, where like a player has been like contract jail or whatever. My stance on this has always been like, because I know as a former player, if when I was unhappy somewhere, did I really give it my 110%? I don't care if you say they have a contract. You know what I mean? Like, I hate it here. I hate this player. Like, I don't, whatever, kick me then, right? Like, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you try and keep someone there that doesn't want to be there? Like, that's my mentality. Like, you're
Yeah.
not going to get the best out of that person anyway. So why not try and, again, then the space is small enough. Why not work with this guy? I'm like, okay, listen, you don't want to be here anymore. Well, let's 500,000 buyout. Nah, dude, come on, man. Like, listen, I just want to maybe I want to make the money back, right? But like, there's more flexibility in some sense, or like certain things, how we do things, or I try to, and sometimes it backfires. I try to be as honest and transparent as I possibly can, right?
Yeah, that's the best way to be.
Right. Everyone's an adult, right? If that means that sometimes I say, like, listen, this is bad, blah, 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 blah. I think that was one of the things that always frustrated me of like, just why are you beating around the bush? Just tell me, dude. Like, I'm an adult, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that's my in-game leader, 10 years. I was very open and frank with people. Hey, that was a missed flash. I wasn't like, hey, blah, 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 blah. This, like, no, just tell me,
Get to the point.
Yeah, just get to the point. No, so yeah, so him starting, I just got a sense for like, listen, it feels like a startup, but it feels like being able to come in and maybe redo some of the wrongs that I feel like has been done in North America, and maybe get to a point as well where it's not so transactional.
Yeah.
Where it is like, and obviously a good example of that is like we don't have VC funds. Like, if anything, we have very little money, so I'm not paying people like in terms of $10,000, but there has to be another value, right? I'll be like, hey, dude, if I can't pay you what you want, like, what else can I do for you? Or like, maybe that means that you have a better buyout clause, or you're able to like go and do certain things, or maybe we'll help you with certain things or whatever. But it should be more like, again, less of a transaction and more like an actual partnership. But yeah, no. So I've been there. I basically the co-founder then from the beginning. This guy's Toast. For the people that's unaware, he is extremely close and has a great partnership with Riot, which is why when you look at the titles that this guy is in, it has been mostly Riot titles. And as a guy for myself, obviously that's a little bit unfortunate. I would have loved to get into Counter-Strike 2 years ago, even. Still obviously actively looking into it, but it is hard. With the space being out, is people feeling like they deserve certain things. To give you an example, maybe for the people watching, I'd be like, oh, why aren't like more teams being picked up? And North American teams, even free agent teams, are extremely unreasonable, where they are expecting still basically prices from like 5 years ago. I've had probably conversations with 4 or 5 different teams, and they're all asking for $5,000 to $6,000 a month, in salary per player. And
That
I
adds up.
understand you want that. It adds up. And imagine then for an org that has no sponsors, that's $24,000 a month. Where so that's where I think they're like, people are just like, VC funds, there's a lot of money there. Like, you can throw away that money, whatever, right? And you've seen kind of what happened in that space. Like, if anything, they have been way too wasteful. We've never seen that in Europe. But with that as well, it's like the mentality has kind of swapped, where it's like, again, I'm with the mentality of like, well, if you want to earn more money, like, earn it. Like, or it's just like, go win it.
Go
Be
get it,
competitive
yeah.
or whatever. Here, it's a little bit more like, give me the money and I'll compete for it. Be like, okay, like, maybe you get half of that. No, sorry, man. I'd rather be free agent. But it's completely up to you, right? So I think that's also been like difficult. Like, I think it's also why, to give you an idea, like, we moved our Valorant team away from North America to East Asia for
Okay.
the same reason. Because North American players, the mindset is very different compared to anywhere in the world. You look at the story with Fallen, for example, and his team, right? Dude, Fallen came here. They were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, 8 people, and they were slaving away for no money, right? And obviously, because he wanted it. I don't think you can say that about any North American team. I don't think anyone would ever do that. They'd be like, no, what are you talking about? I need
Yeah.
bed. I need this. I need to be able to live. What do you mean? I need to be able to work full time. Here's another fun fact that people don't know. My first year, when we went 87-0, I was working full time.
What?
Yeah.
How?
We didn't make money. Yeah,
That's
we didn't make money.
crazy.
Yeah, I moved. I quit IBM and I moved back to Sweden in August 2012. and I got a job at, it's called Wincor Nixdorf. It's an ATM company. If you go and take out money right now, you look at the logo, I can almost guarantee you the ATM that you're taking out money from is the company that I worked for. I was the Swedish field dispatcher for there, and I was there starting. I started in September, I think, 2012, full time. I was working 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. I would come home, I would have quick dinner, and then practice would start 5:30. And I would have practice 5:30 to 11. And the only reason why I had to quit was because we started attending way too many events, and I felt fucking terrible having to take off like so many days. But I was working full time the first 9 months of NiP.
That's crazy.
So like when people, so when people talk about like, oh no, blah, where I do this, dude, if you really want something, you're going to make it happen. If you're telling me that you can't because you need this XYZ, you don't want it.
It's just lazy.
Excuse. It's lazy. You're just an excuse. And if anything, the people that I talk to that is like that, as you can imagine, after you know, especially being someone that has won tournaments and attended and done all of that, my interest for you doesn't matter how good the team seems to be. It's completely just dead in the water now. Because what you should be coming to me with is like, listen, we're here, we want to win. I want to win. I want to do anything possible. If I'm able to like be able to like buy myself food and support myself for that, yeah, like, you know, that would be great. But understand that you know, there's not a lot of opportunity, you know, with that right now. Whatever, like you would try and work it, right? There's so many examples of that, but you don't have any single North American example of that. You have Europeans example, you have Latin, you know, Brazilian examples. You even have Asian examples. Look at Mongols, right? There's so many examples, but then this massive region for some reason is completely sideways.
Yeah.
And if you know, unfortunately, it's all about the money instead of the achievements and like the merits or whatever. So that's where like I got screwed over by like NiP when I, you know, back in the day, and like you know, there's a lot of money that I never got, but I think where I go back and I still feel good about all of this is I got so much experience that I would have never gotten, that had given me the tools and have led me to where I am today.
Yeah.
You know, all of that is basically like, if I didn't do any of that, would I have gotten a job at Twitch? No, probably not. Would I have been a co-founder and CEO of this guys? No, probably not. Right. So like, while those bad things happen, there's so much like there that it's like positive.
Yeah.
That is effectively like, you know, so I always like trying to go back and, you know, it's done. Right. But it gave me something else. And sure, while I am not a Shroud level, I'm sure everyone would love to be, you know, living in LA mansions and like making a ton of money. Like, I think having been able to have done this and make a living and like actually do something back in then, like I remember back in 2005, you know, I was still in school and stuff. The teachers were like, Robbie, you're never gonna, what are you doing? Like, you're never gonna make anything out of yourself playing video games, right? And I think like has always been back in my head of like, screw you, you know,
I'm gonna show you, yeah,
you're wrong, right? And that's where like I'm really appreciative. I mean, if anything, I'm extremely like proud of like the trajectory I've done. And while like I said, I would have loved and would still love to be in Counter-Strike, at the moment, it's just room for me at the moment, you know. So that's not to say that I'm not coming back or that I don't want to come back, and that's not to say that this Xizt is not going into Counter-Strike or anything like that. But I do think it kind of goes, like I said, with everything else, kind of goes in waves, and you kind of have to find a moment. Opportunity, right? And to give you an idea, for example, for this Xizt this year, our opportunity this year was that we are in LCS for Europe, you know, LEC, which is basically the highest league in League of Legends in North America. We got a chance to be part of that this year as a guest provisional slot, but still it's a very cool thing as a startup org, right? Without VC money, being able to then, we're competing against, you know, now the best of the best, right? The C9s and the Liquids and stuff like that in our title. Maybe next year we'll be doing the same thing in Counter-Strike, you know, who knows?
Hey, I'd love to see it. That would be awesome. That would go full circle for sure.
Yeah.
So for the last segment, and it's been a while, and again, I appreciate all the time you've given me. This has
been fun, man.
This is officially the longest episode we've done, and I'm glad that it was with you. So thank you so much for everything. So I asked a couple people in the Twitch chat the other day, I didn't mention the name, so this is gonna come by complete surprise.
Okay.
People are only gonna know when they start watching it.
Super fun.
I said that there is a man who has lifted a major trophy and has a lot of cool accolades under his belt. If you had questions for someone who's lifted a major trophy, essentially, what would you have to ask? Somebody says, for something serious, you could talk to him about the peak of his career and then how/when he noticed the decline afterwards and his decision to retire if he's cool with talking about it. You kind of touched on
Yeah.
that a little bit already.
No, I'm down to talk about it for
Up to
sure.
you
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah, no. So peak in my career, I would say 2008. Individually, in terms of when I felt like the best. That year we had in Source, they also had Nations Cup, like 3 years. So I'm like a 3x Nations Cup winner. I'm a 2x MVP Nations Cup winner. First draft. I think it's like a lot of good things going for me on the individual side there. Even in the beginning of CS:GO, I would say my mental was pretty good. Like I was joking around a lot, but because we were winning and stuff like that, I never really thought about like, oh, like am I like not doing good or whatever. I feel like I was developing in the sense of, while maybe I was individually weaker back then, I was so much smarter and experienced, and I was able to work with the piece that I had a lot more. Something that maybe I didn't 5 years earlier, where I was a lot more individually talented. Probably if you're thinking about like an in-game leader, if I'm in that mode, maybe I'm thinking more about myself, how I'm performing, versus getting all the pieces to work, like a little bit of a chess master or whatever. My decline. So for the people that's unaware, it's funny. There's been waves where I think there's been people that has been talked to or about as much as I have. If you go back, you look at literally almost every article from 2012 to 2014. Didn't matter if NiP was in it, they would use me as an example everywhere. I was the most hated and talked about professional player at that time. Doesn't matter if we won, they replace me. If we lost, obviously replace me. If I had a good game, it was constant. My parents were getting death threats like literally every day.
What?
It was bad. Like I'm still probably to this day the one player that has been attacked the most by far.
Wow.
By far. Yeah, it was really bad, right? Like every day I couldn't go anywhere, right? Even on HLTV, like literally, or like Reddit or Twitter, like I played literally, it would just be attacks. Left, right, and center. Like I said, even articles that didn't have an IP in it, they would just use me as example. Uh, Everyone wanted my head because I go back, right? A lot of that fan base back then was like 1.6. So now they have this source player that's not dropping 30 bombs, right? Like, fuck this guy, right? And I try to be, if you go back to my interviews and stuff, as positive as possible. I never said no to anything. I would always be positive and outspoken in some sense. I never, and it's funny talking to players nowadays because everyone says the same. Oh, I don't let that get to me. I don't get nervous, blah, blah, blah. I said the same thing, when I first started. I don't care either. 2 years with that, actually, it starts to get to you because you couldn't click anything. If I wanted to just go in and be like, oh, let me look and see what current game is on, and I would go in, HLTV now would have like forums blocked. There would be nothing like that. You would just have 20 posts about me,
What
no
the
matter the
fuck?
time. Yeah, it was crazy, right? Even in match threads, just all over. So I couldn't go anywhere, not even to click like go on games and whatever. And 2012 was a really bad year for me in that sense because obviously now then it's been 2 years, or to start 2014, it's been 2 years basically of just me getting attacked. Where now I start to believe what they're saying a little bit more, or I start to overthink. Like let's say I miss a spray, right? And like I'm in this spray, for me it's like slow motion. I'm missing. Don't fucking miss, Robin. Like fucking just hit the guy. But whatever. There's a diffuse that I recall. We're playing Dust 2. The guy's diffusing his CT on a plat, and I'm down in pit. I'm tapping this guy. I'm not killing him.
Oh my
Tapping.
god.
Tap, dude. And 5 seconds for me in my head is 20 seconds. Like it goes so slow. I'm panicking. Tap. He's not dying. Tap. And he diffuses. And I'm like, man, my mental was so shattered at the end of my career where and I talk really, I talk about it now, where it's like, there's two learnings that I had. The first one is um which I learned too late, which I can really appreciate my teammates for, because I had, like, I think in 2013 I had a really bad event, and like my teammates were like, Robin, like, why do you care so much what everyone else thinks? You should care about what we think. And we think that you're incredible, you're doing your job well, we wouldn't change anything. Why aren't you listening to that instead? And instead I was like, the demons in my head. Right now I'm shit. And I that did help a little bit, where I did, like, actually, you're right. Like, why am I caring about what random fans think? If anything, they're probably just very jealous that, like, I'm in this position, or whatever it might
Yeah,
be, right?
and they're at home watching you on the Twitch
Right.
stream or something.
Right. Instead of, like, what my actual teammates think that I play with, that, like, I consider my friends as well, right? And that, I will say, that did really help. At that time, nowadays you will see a lot of these orgs will have performance coaches
Yeah.
or mental coaches. We have none of that, right?
You
Like,
guys didn't have that back then?
no, it's none of
Damn.
that, right? Let's remember, like, we got the coach in like a year and a half later. Before then, coaches were not even a thing.
Oh, yeah, I guess
Right, so we
so.
would have management,
Wow.
right, and, like, so you don't have anything, and, if any, and that's also why, like, nowadays for me, I actually value performance coaches a lot, because I say that to myself. I'm like, if I had someone like that for myself, like, I actually think that I would have extended my career, because back when I retired, I was 28, I think.
Okay.
You'd think about that in this day and age. 28 back then is retirement age. Nowadays, you look at it, dude, Karen is competing, like, we have 34-year-olds,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I could have had 6 more years had my mental probably been good, right? And that's not to say that I would have been as good as what, but I'm just saying, in terms of, like, had my mental been good, I think I mentally would have been like, I still want to compete.
Your
But
mental
I
is your
was so,
everything at the end of the
yeah,
day.
yeah, and I was so, at the end of it, when and the two tournaments before I retired was, we had lost versus a French team, and one of the players in that French team ended up getting banned right after Kaylee, KQLY. I still genuinely think he probably cheated in the events that we played. We got absolutely demolished by this guy. So it sucks too, in the sense of, like, my last two events, I ended up being eliminated by basically a guy that got back banned. But yeah, no. So I think that was probably the worst, I think, when, at that end, where I felt like I was getting back in the groove, and then I think I got, this basic decision being made that, hey, you're being replaced. That was a bit random, to be honest, because even the players, because they brought in Michael Lele, I don't think that was really expected either, and they came to a surprise, right? And the org just like, oh, we're gonna make a change for the major and whatever, even though there hasn't been, like, an indicator. Like, the 3 majors we played, the final every single time, you still make that decision. But I would say probably at the end there, I think if my mental was better, I would probably be playing better. But I think half of 2014, my mental wasn't good. So yeah, I wasn't playing very well. Not at all, if anything. And I could totally see myself being a liability. And I was trying to obviously cope with that, of like, well, if I'm not killing people, let's make sure that my other teammates are, like, doing well, like, I set them up for success and whatnot. But I definitely did have a lot of mental issues. And it was funny, because after then the post came out that I was no longer a team, as you can imagine, my mentality was, well, they've been asking for it for 2 years, right? Like, these guys are going to be, like, cheering from the ground up. That every post can be like, yes, he's finally gone, he's gone. And if anything, I actually, and I used the same example when I on Yelp, but basically when I retired, instead of getting flamed and basically said, like, yes, gone, now I got the people, the actual fans.
Oh, wow.
They came out, and they were very supportive. And I got a lot of positivity instead. Like, if anything, the messaging changed very quickly, where every day was just all negative, and then I retired, like, basically, like, just straight positivity.
It sucks that you have to wait till you get removed from the roster to see that, though. Like, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, because I think had it happened, like, during, for example, like, I think, like, I think my mental would have been so much better. But I use the same example then, and it's a funny one. But maybe, you go to a restaurant, right, and you get served good food. You're like, great, it's what I expected. Very rarely would you go in and be, oh, I'm going to go and do a Google review or Yelp review to say that the food is up. But if the food is bad, right, fuck it, I'm going to go in 1 star, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, sure. Kind of, I felt like the same there, where the people that would have the good reviews, they just don't do it because they're like, oh, it's expected or whatever. Versus the one that has bad, review, they would just constantly. So same thing here with the hate train. Obviously, you would have all the negative just sitting there every day, boom, 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 boom. And then you have my actual fans probably maybe sitting there thinking, well, listen, he's a professional guy. Like, I don't have to say good job every day or whatever, right? But that was actually like really nice, I feel. And that was the reason why I continued doing the talent work after, because I think had it been just the same negative perception, I would have been gone because I was extremely burnt out with that. But I think me coming in there and like people actually like liking to like listen to me, and it was like a more general positivity in general. People are like, oh my god, like this Fifth is actually like a really positive guy, and be like, yeah, I've been trying to be the whole time. But I think, yeah, so I think that was like at least again probably the reason why I keep on going back to it. I'm like, man, I want to get back into space. But yeah, no. So I think the best for sure 2008 individually. I think the best, if you think about the whole package, I would probably say 2013. Just in terms of, I think what I did for the team, not necessarily individually, but more so into, I think I had the most amount of experience. I felt like I read the game really well, like I had a good idea, like really solid. I wasn't being a problem child or anything like that. I was a really good teammate. So I look back on those two kind of. And then, yeah, I mean, the end of it in 2014, like I said, like it's just the downward slump. And that is, I associate that a lot with just really bad mental.
Yeah.
I just wish that someone, and it's not the players, side or whatever. But and nowadays, if you think about it, had this been like a legitimate org, like nowadays, you probably would have orgs and be like, actually, yeah, you need, like, let's have you talk to someone or whatever. For me, I think it was so much easier to just think, just get rid of the guy, right? Just get rid of him. He has mental problems. Fuck that guy. Getting someone else instead.
Yeah. It's a harsh
Which
world
sucks.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Sucks.
absolutely, right? Yeah. In the moment, you're like, man, like, but nowadays it's like, yeah, and especially now when I'm running my own org, in some sense too, it's like, yeah, I understand you kind of gotta do what you feel like you have to do, um, but I think there's like easier or like better ways of doing it than maybe what they did. But it hasn't been the first and only time that org specifically has come into the crossfire of unfortunate mismanagement. So, like you said, you kind of live and you learn. And if anything, the only like my learning from that is like, if I'm ever in that position, like I would like to try and not give the experience to a player, and kind of have been there. And I talk a lot, like in my current job or like even the last 10 years, I talk a lot about my experiences as a player and thing, because I think it holds a lot of value.
Absolutely.
Who is some like VC fund guy that doesn't know gaming? Like, what does he know versus like, yeah, maybe I don't have the fancy resume that you have, but I have done this in basically what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So I think that holds a lot of value, where it is a little bit more mental in sports, right? It's more physical, but definitely in gaming, it's very mental.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll do one more quick question here. How many hours a week do teams train, and what does training for a major look like?
So that one is funny. So I give you another example with that. DreamHack Winter 2013. That's the one where we had the TV crew following us around, and it's one of the only events, and we had a big learning there. We actually boot camped 3 weeks coming into that event, and that was a lot for us considering we were traveling a lot too, right? So, and usually when you talk about like work-life balance, our work-life balance was, well, we would go to this event, we would finish, we would come home, we get to practice from home a little bit, right? You come back to normal. It was a big event, maybe we would have like a 3-4 day boot camp coming into it, right? But you would always at least have time away from the players and like, for yourself. For that event, because we had a TV crew, we decided to boot camp for 3 weeks, and we had come right from another event into them back into the house, and we were living together. And I think like mental sake there, that I think that also ruined our chances, because at the end of the day, you might like someone as much as possible, but like living with them for that long, like being on its toes, we were getting very irritated with one another.
Yeah.
And it's not like we didn't dislike each other or whatever, but
You see time apart.
Yeah, just a little bit, right? Like everyone has a quirk, right? And you can deal with that over the weekend, whatever. But like for that stretch, uh, and then obviously we didn't win the event, right? And I think one of the things we said right after the event was that we are extremely burnt out. Like, let's not bootcamp like this much for next events or whatever. Like, let's not make the same mistake again. Maybe max a week, right? So I think usually the timing really changes, because the boot camps people talk about, because I know there was I think a team, maybe it was Spirit, coming into the recent major and said we didn't boot camp, and people were like, what, you didn't
Yeah,
boot
yeah,
camp?
yeah, yeah. I remember hearing that.
Yeah, and I can see it in some sense, but I can also see it on their way, because like at the boot camps for me, let's say that we would come back for an event and I'm playing from home. Absolutely, I'm spending less time at the game. Even you can lie yourself, right? But like, you're not getting the same kind of like intimate conversations you would at a boot camp. Like if I'm sitting at home just playing, I'm not, I don't have Xizt or friberg right next to me, and we're chatting about stuff. I'm like, oh, like think about that round. If anything, I'm like thinking about something else. So like maybe I'm working more on the individual side. Boot camps is so good because there's so many like small things in the game, or like stuff that happens or whatever, maybe a small little idea that changed the outcome of something. And if you're only getting the time, like you have then the scrim, say 12 to 6 or whatever, all right, and then you just leave. You're getting much less of that.
Okay.
So coming into the majors for us, we would have been running like a week's worth of boot camp. You would obviously be practicing beforehand, but knowing then, if as soon as you set foot in a boot camp location, already you're going to be more productive than if you were to be at home. So with that, I think the timing, I think, is a little bit different, because you would argue about like, well, you would have the scrim times, and the scrim times for us was always like 6 or 7 scrims, um, depending on, maybe we push it to 8 or whatever. But we would always be like, because one of the things we noticed with when we scrimmed Americans was that Europeans practice for the sake of practice. Let's say you're in a soccer, field, or you're in a soccer team. The soccer team wouldn't go, hey, we have practice Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever, and then every time you show up, you're just playing a competitive game. Like you would actually have drills and stuff like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you would like work on certain things. North Americans are all about like, oh, let's just play. Either they play completely just random, and it's like, why even practice, right? Or they take it way too seriously, where they don't practicing, where they're like, oh, we want scrims. Europeans are a little bit more like, well, I'm practicing so that stuff works in the official game. So maybe I have a new execute, for example, all right? Like maybe in the scrim, I would run the same play 4 times just to get execute timing right? Would I ever do that in official? Of course not, right? But you basically you actually work on the stuff you have to work on, and you
Yeah.
see it as practice. So for us, a lot of it comes down to, you would base it off of where you feel like you're at. So let's say that major we won, Cobblestone and Overpass had just come out. We knew that a lot of teams would never practice both maps. They would remove one. They would be like, oh, shit, we don't have time for both. Pick whoever one we hate the least, right? Okay, fucking Overpass, shit, get rid of it. So we
Yeah.
knew that, like, well, in order for us to win, we have to have an advantage. We don't want to just come in and be good at 5 maps when there's 7 maps in map pool. We're gonna have issues. If we're able to come in and we're able to play all 7 maps, that's not to be great. We have a veto advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
So coming into that event, we actually did play a little bit more, and it was mostly like tied into just like getting reps on the map. If that was like face it pugs or like screaming or whatever, we came in with that intent of we just have to prepare and be better than the other teams on these two, and be comfortable picking it if we feel like we can. It's one thing to scrimmage, right? It's another thing to actually like be comfortable picking it too, which we obviously did in groups and we lost, right? But that's that mentality of feeling like you have to be prepared. So I would say probably coming into those events, you are probably looking at now probably performance coaches like would maybe say less and whatnot, but like if you feel like you need a little bit of work, you're talking 10 to 12 hours a day. I have never. You will have players like, look at Donk, right? He's playing 16 hours a day, 17 hours a day, and I think a lot of people when they measure that and they go like, oh, look, they're not playing as much. When you are so active that these guys are, burnout is actually real. You know,
Yeah.
like sometimes for me, just having like 4 days off away from a computer to get the itch back was like all I needed.
Okay.
But if you're sitting there, right, 8 hours a day, 8 hours a day, and especially what Donk's doing, like face it and stuff like that, it is like it's very taxing.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of learnings there, even like across the board from like probably a lot of teams. And Donk is young enough where like, but give him 5 years and you ask him again, he's not going to be sitting at those many hours
No.
because
No.
it actually does take a toll on you, right? So like I think we were always with the mentality of it's quality over quantity, right? So we would come in and let's say we had an off day, I don't know, it's 6 p.m. and we had games until 9. Well, if 6 p.m. people are like killed, then we're just running around. Hey guys, why are we even playing this? Like, let's just cancel instead, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, like it's not
Just a waste of time.
why, right? It's a waste of time, and if anything, you're just making people more frustrated, right? So it always depends team to team. Like, so you're gonna have the ones that be like, oh, we didn't even boot camp come into it, and people are like, what the heck? God damn, I can't believe it. Versus you have the people, oh yeah, we had a whole month worth of boot camp. And like, actually, if I was a betting man, I would probably bet on the team that didn't boot camp coming into that because I think the one with the 1 month boot camp, they're going to be killed out of their minds.
They've been playing too
down.
much.
They've been playing too much, right? They've been coming in trying to be too perfect. Whereas like, and that's something that I tell my league team because everyone will make mistakes. Doesn't matter how prepared you are. Every team will make mistakes. The team that wins is the one who makes the least amount of mistakes, but they still make mistakes. Vitality, even when they were in the record, you can go into rounds and you can be like, they're making mistakes, right? They're just making less mistakes than say Mousesports is at the moment, right? And if you have that mentality of like, it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, 100%.
Just narrow them down, right? Yeah, so it's very different. I mean, we would sometimes we would just overdo it, right? Like I said, the DreamHack Winter one. Sometimes we would underdo it, where we'd be like, oh, actually, we don't feel like prepared enough, right? I do think it like really comes like depending on team to team. But let's say, as an example, let's say you're an aspiring, player or team, right? Like I value boot camps a lot. Because the amount of time, what you don't realize, these small conversations, just being able to sit here, like, I'm sitting here and I see my teammate on the right, he's still playing. I'm like, man, I should be playing more. Man, okay. Like, you're getting everyone kind of just
Getting in the zone.
Getting in the zone, and they work a little bit better, and you're able to talk to people a little bit different. Like, I think, especially in COVID, I think people forgot this whole thing of like, there are people on the other side of the microphone,
Yeah.
like your teammate is an actual person. And like, even the way that we're talking right now, while it's personable, we see each other on camera and whatever, in person it's still different. Like, there's an energy like that's being met. So like, I always say, like, if you're an aspiring, like, even if you feel like, oh, it's not value or whatever, dude, 3 days, like 4 days, even 2 days, just getting in the same room, just playing a little bit together, you'll be surprised how much conversation comes out that might not have happened then had you been online, that comes out of like, the useful stuff. And I always said the same, because Counter-Strike, it's a big map, but you probably have like a like a site or like a bomb site teammate, right, that you normally play with. Like, for example, friberg and Force used to always be like a duo. They would always like hold the B bomb sites together. It was always like me, Getra, and Xizt. And with that, like, I don't have to have team meetings all the time. And Force and friberg doesn't have to be there when I'm chatting about A. But if I'm just sitting here, I'm talking to shit to Getra, and be like, hey, Getra, like, next time we go like long, did you see what they did there? Like, maybe we try it. But whatever, just lose conversations. There's so much that actually comes out of that. That is so much more value. And it doesn't have to be in front of a computer, obviously. Like, even if you go out to dinner, like, just more so that like in-person thing is really important for the success of teams. People memed on their Falcons one, I think, where they had a non-PC boot camp. I see the value, as a former player, I see the value. That was actually what we did right before we formed on NiP. We had a house party. We didn't know each other. So my manager was like, hey, let's just get together, barbecue at Getra's place, have some drinks. Dude, I think that made us so much closer off the bat, because we were all wasted. And with that, you have the feelings already, right? Oh, man, we're going to be so good, man. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. You start off on that, right? Americans drink less than Europeans, though, so I can't really run the same mentality here. With my league team, I'm like, yeah, just go out and have some drinks.
Yeah.
But it does a lot. It does a lot. I'm a big believer of if the team like bonds and gels together, like the results will come eventually. Like they're able to have proper conversations on as one. They don't take it personally, right? It's just like, no, listen, I just want you to be better at the game, right? Like I still love you as a person.
Yeah.
I think those kind of teams and relationships are like by far the best and generates the most.
Well, dude, thank you very much for your time. That was the last question I had for you.
All right.
For the outro, I kind of just like to shine the spotlight over on the guests. And if there's anything that you, maybe a message or something you want to share or something that you're working on, people should be aware about anything at all, you just let them know. Now's your time.
Now, listen, first of all, thanks so much for taking the time. I know that I've been dragging a little bit. We were supposed to do this in June already. So for the people listening on me, but it's been awesome. Listen, we need more people like you, man, like doing this kind of stuff. I think it actually like does do a lot, like people, and it's not about the viewership or whatever. It's pieces of history, right? Like you go back to it and someone needs to do it, right? So no, I really appreciate of you. As for myself, listen, maybe I'll be in Counter-Strike soon enough, but if you are like a fan of League of Legends, obviously check out this guys, the team. Outside of that, no, just continue doing what you guys are doing, and thanks for if you guys have made it all this far.
You're a legend if you made it this far.
Yeah, you are. I really appreciate you taking the time, and no, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, guys, and that does it for today's episode. Absolutely amazing. Editing this I just had a smile on my face the whole time. I mean, the nicest guy, crazy stories, and just, oh man, if I had a fedora, I'd be tipping it right now. Shout out Fifflaren, big time, man. Much love. That's going to do it for today's episode, though. So again, if you guys haven't done it by now, make sure you're liking the video, commenting. Let me know. I'm always open to hear about what you guys have to say about the podcast. If I could be doing something better, always down to hear about that. Drop a comment. Show Fifflaren some love in the comments. And, of course, subscribe because we're getting very, very close to 500 subscribers. And I would love to hit that pretty soon. And when we do, we're going to be doing a giveaway on Twitter. So you can check my links out in the description and follow me there to keep up to date with that. That will do it for today's episode, though. So thank you guys very much once again for tapping in. Until next time, everybody.